could, when you're eating just this, you're eating the seeds. Yeah, but you can get the actual.
Good morning. Colossians 3 and 15 says, "Let the peace of Christ rule in your hearts, since as members of one body you are called to peace, and be thankful." Today I want to speak to you for a few minutes on a spirit of gratitude. We live in a time where a person can get distracted by all their responsibilities, opportunities, demands, and personal matters, that one can forget to be grateful and to count the many wonderful blessings that are yours. The blessing of life, health, wonderful opportunities, the gift of family, friends, and a supportive network. The privilege for forgiveness, restoration, and the chance to begin anew every day. And the blessed opportunity for national service and shaping the present and visioning for the future for our country. Melody Beth says, "Gratitude makes sense of your past, bringing peace for today, and creates a vision for tomorrow." I want to encourage each of you every day to cultivate a spirit of gratitude. Be positive, filled with which you can frame your world and environment with your attitude and your words. We know how it feels to be in a toxic environment. I'm sure you can all cite cases. So in your sphere of influence, develop a productive, positive space that will be a blessing to all who interacts with you. As leaders, you are called to develop and empower people. 1 Thessalonians 5 and 11 says, "Therefore encourage one another and build each other up, just as in fact you are doing." Gratitude allows you to see beyond the challenges and to recognize you have been blessed and tasked with the trust of your country and Almighty God to be a person of positive change and transformation. It is being grateful that you are in a place to make tremendous change. Anthony DeMello saw a starving, shivering child in the cold. Angrily, he lifted his eyes to heaven and said, "God, how could you allow such suffering? Why don't you do something?" There was a long silence. Then DeMello was startled when he heard the voice of God answering him, "I have certainly done something. I made you." As you debate and discuss the bills before you today, remember, God made you to address the many ills and vicissitudes that are before you. Do your best to impact the lives of others positively and with a grateful heart. Let us pray. Dear God, this day we give you thanks for each senator. Help them to be grateful for the trust that has been placed upon them and to be agents of positive change. May they never lose hope or fail to give their best service. Guide their deliberations and make unknown ways for them when they come to an impasse and cannot see the way forward. Keep them in good health and bless their work. In Jesus' name, amen. Please join in the prayer of our Lord. Our Father, hallowed be thy name, thy kingdom come. Thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen.
Good morning, Senators. I would like to thank Reverend Culmer for her inspirational devotion and her dedication to the Senate. Before we commence today's proceedings, the Chair welcomes an outstanding citizen to the balcony, and I hasten to add my former classmate, Chief Superintendent Kristlyn Kemp Skipping, who has served the Royal Bahamas Police Force for 32 years. She is also the recipient of the Royal Bahamas Police Force Medal for Long Service and Good Conduct, as well as the Meritorious Service the Commissioner of Police Commendation Award. During her career, she serves as the Director of the National Crime Prevention Office, the organization's Procurement Officer, as well as the Public Affairs and Communications Officer, which is the Press Officer, for the Royal Bahamas Police Force. In her present capacity, she serves as the Officer in charge of the Financial Support Services Section. Chief Superintendent Skippings has made and continues to make significant contribution to the police force and, by extension, our beloved country. In the area of youth development, she played a significant role in structuring the 242 pre-suspension program, which seeks to assist at-risk students and implement the concept of Safe Halloween, which seeks to keep children safe during Halloween. In the area of community development, she initiated the concept Business Crime Watch and was instrumental in developing the Grove Crime Watch, Yellow Elder Crime Watch, and the Chippenham Crime Watch groups, just to list a few. Additionally, she served as the Secretariat Manager to the National CCTV Steering Committee. She is the Royal Bahamas Police Force first civilian lab technician, the first female to dress an official parade, which is the graduation of the police college, and the first female press officer, and the first subordinate officer to hold the portfolio as press officer. Well done, Chief Superintendent, well done. Chief Superintendent Skippings is an active member of the Maranatha Seventh Adventist Church located in Prince Charles Drive, a member of the Rotary Club of Nassau, and a member of the Princess Court Ministry, an organization that promotes young girls to remain pure. Welcome, Chief Superintendent Kristlyn Kemp Skippings. You are, and we thank you, the Senate thanks you for your unwavering and dedicated support to our beloved country. May God continue to bless you and bless your efforts. Thank you. Adoption of minutes.
Madam President, before I move for the adoption of the minutes, I would just like to associate myself with the comments and the commendation that you have made to Chief Superintendent Skipping on her long service to the country. Madam President, I move that the minutes of the session of the Senate Wednesday, 11th of May 2022 be adopted.
Is there a seconder?
Second.
It has been moved and seconded that the minutes of the meeting held on the 11th of May 2022 be adopted. As many as in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. The motion is carried. The ayes have it. The minutes of the 11th of May 2022 are adopted. Motion of leave of absence, leave to resign seats, swearing in of new senators, communications by the President, messages from the Governor General, messages from the House of Assembly.
Messages from the House of Assembly.
Bahamas, number 12.
Message to the Honorable the President and honorable members of the Senate from the Speaker and representatives of the Honorable House of Assembly. The House of Assembly acquaints the Honorable the Senate that they have passed the following bills and desire the consent of that Honorable Chamber, namely, a bill for an act to amend the Financial Transactions Reporting Act, a bill for an act to amend the Digital Assets and Registered Exchanges Act to provide monitoring and carrying on, purporting to carry on digital asset business activity with the requisite registration. House of Assembly now for 18th May 2022, Patricia D. Rose, Speaker.
Laying of documents by ministers.
Madam President, I beg leave to lay on the table of the Senate a copy of the following rules: the Digital Assets and Registered Exchanges, Anti-Money Laundering, Countering Finance, and Countering Financing of Delivery.
Further laying of documents.
Thank you, Madam President. Madam President, I wish to beg leave to lay on the table of the Senate copy of the following regulations: the Price Control Regulations 2022 and the Non-Profit Organization Anti-Money Laundering, Countering Terrorism Financing Regulation 2022.
Order the document be brought up. Order the document do lie on the table. Further laying of documents.
Yes, Madam President. Madam President, I beg leave to lay on the table of the Senate a copy of the following: the Banks and Trust Company's appointment of independent valuer, Lucius Bank Limited, Notice 2022.
Order the document be brought up. Order the document do lie on the table.
Madam President, I beg leave to lay on the table of the Senate a copy of the following directions: the Public Debt Management Bahamas Registered Stock 2023 Directions 2022, the Public Debt Management Bahamas Registered Stock Number 3 2023 Directions 2022, the Public Debt Management Bahamas Registered Stock 2025, 2027, 2029, 2032, 2042, and 2052 Directions 2022, and the Public Debt Management Bahamas Registered Stock Number 2, 2025, 2027, 2029, 2032, 2042, and 2052 Directions 2022.
Order the documents be brought up. Order that the documents do lie on the table. Further laying of documents by the ministers.
Yes, Madam President. Madam President, I beg leave to lay on the table of the Senate documents that were laid in that other place yesterday, I think it was, and it is the National Food Distribution Task Force Agreed Upon Procedures Report, communication to the Honorable House of Assembly by Prime Minister Philip Davis, QC, tabling a report into operation of the National Food Distribution Task Force and the Food Distribution Program, and as well certain invoices were also tabled.
Order the documents be brought up. Order the documents do lie on the table. Further laying of documents.
And none, Madam President.
Communications by senators. Communications by ministers. Questions? Answer to questions. Preparation of petitions. Appointment of select committees. Reports of committees. First reading of bills.
Madam President, I beg leave to introduce and have read for the first time a bill for an act to establish an independent body to administer courts to provide support services to and for official officers and to provide for related matters.
Is there a seconder?
Second.
It has been ordered that the document be brought up. It has been moved and seconded that the following bill be read a first time and table. A bill for an act to establish an independent body to manage the administration of the courts to provide support services to and for judicial officers and to provide for related matters. Be read for a first time.
A bill for an act to establish an independent body to manage the administration of the courts, to provide support services to and for judicial officers, and to provide for related matters.
For the first reading of bills.
Madam President, I beg leave to introduce and have read for a first time a bill for an act to expand the practice of nursing and midwifery, to continue the Nursing Council of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas, to provide for the training, regulation, registration, and licensing of registered nurses, midwives, and advanced practice nurses, to provide for the training, enrollment, and licensing of licensed practical nurses, to provide for the regulation of nurse interns, to provide for the regulation of unlicensed assistive personnel, to provide for the regulation, registration, and licensing of nursing agencies, to repeal the Nurses and Midwives Act 1971, and for connected purposes.
The document be brought up. Order the document to lie on the table. It has been moved and seconded. Is there a seconder? It has been moved and seconded that the following bill be read a first time and table. A bill to expand the practice of nursing and midwifery, to continue the Nursing Council of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas, by training, registration, and licensing of registered nurses, midwives, and advanced practice nurses, to provide for the training, regulation, enrollment, and licensing of licensed practical nurses, to provide for the regulation of nurse interns, to provide for the regulation of unlicensed assistive personnel, to provide for the regulation, registration, and licensing of nursing agencies, to repeal the Nurses and Midwives Act 1971, and for connected purposes. As many as in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed? The ayes have it. The motion is carried. Order that the document be read a first time.
A bill for an act to expand the practice of nursing and midwifery, to continue the Nursing Council of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas, to provide for the training, regulation, registration, and licensing of registered nurses, midwives, and advanced practice nurses, to provide for the training, regulation, enrollment, licensing of licensed practical nurses, to provide for the regulation of nurse interns, to provide for the regulation of unlicensed assistive personnel, to provide for the regulation, registration, and licensing of nursing agencies, to repeal the Nurses and Midwives Act 1971 and for connected purposes.
Further first reading of bills.
Thank you, Madam President. Madam President, I beg leave to introduce and have read for the first time a bill for an act to amend the Digital Assets and Registered Exchanges Act to provide for the monitoring and sanction of persons carrying on or purporting to carry on digital assets business activities without the requisite registration. And Madam President, we will be seeking the concurrence of the side opposite to do second reading and committal of this amendment as well today. And so I so move.
Thank you. Senator Henfield?
We concur.
Thank you, Senator Henfield. Is there a second? Order the document be brought up. Order the document do lie on the table. It has been moved and seconded that the following bill be read a first time and tabled. A bill for an act to amend the Digital Assets and Registered Exchanges Act to provide for the monitoring and sanction of persons carrying on or purporting to carry on digital asset business activities without the requisite registration. As many as in favor say aye. Those opposed say nay. The ayes have it. The motion is carried. Order that the document be read for a first time.
A bill for an act to amend the Digital Assets and Registered Exchanges Act to provide for the monitoring and sanction of purporting to carry on digital assets businesses. Registration.
Further of bills?
They're not, President.
The chair just want to pause on the agenda at this time to recognize additional guests that we have in the gallery. We are joined today by students from Duke University who are here as part of the Duke Engage program, which sends a group of students into the world to render their service. As part of the Duke Engage Bahamas experience, they are working with BAMSI, the Red Cross, and BAIC, and providing tutoring to children in Fort Charlotte. It is my understanding that they are excited and eager to immerse themselves in Bahamian culture for 2 months whilst in the Bahamas. We thank you for coming to our shores. We appreciate you being here, and on behalf of the Bahamas Senate, we welcome you here to the Senate Gallery today, and thank you. Second reading of bills. The chair recognizes Senator the Honorable Ryan Pinder.
Thank you, Madam President. After being scolded in previous sessions for speaking before being recognized, I was silent.
Thank you, Senator Pinder. Thank you.
I would like to certainly welcome my fellow brothers and sisters from the Atlantic Coast Conference, Duke Blue Devils. However, having welcomed you, this Miami Hurricane, we're looking forward to challenging you on the basketball court and the football field once again. Madam President, today I rise to move for the second reading of the Digital Assets and Registered Exchanges Amendment Bill 2022. This is an important amendment that not only, Madam President, fulfills obligations and commitments as set out in our recently released white paper on the future of digital assets in the Bahamas, but also in turn fulfills our obligations under the amended FATF Recommendation 15, which requires that virtual asset service providers, known as VASPs, be regulated for anti-money laundering and countering the financing of terrorism purposes, that they be licensed or registered, and subject to effective systems of monitoring and supervision. Madam President, I think it important to make a point early on in this debate, as I am sure the opposition will try to claim credit for this legislation. But the implementation, Madam President, is actually being done by the Progressive Liberal Party administration. Madam President, this administration walks the walk. We don't merely talk the talk like the previous administration. Yes, Madam President, the DARE Act was passed under their administration. But meaningful implementation and presenting a framework for Bahamian participation is being done under this New Day administration, Madam President. Madam President, this is all in furtherance of our commitment to implement the policies we have committed to and creating an expanded economic framework for Bahamians to participate in. In my prior communication of the Digital Assets White Paper, Madam President, I announced the composition of the Digital Advisory Panel, which has the mandate to keep digital assets and related digital developments, emerging trends, and associated risks constantly under review. The Digital Advisory Panel has a composition that will focus on our regulatory standards from international bodies and have key engagement with regulatory stakeholders, both domestically and abroad. Madam President, the Digital Advisory Panel held its first meeting where it established its mandate and focused on specific areas to fulfill the obligation under the Digital Asset White Paper. These include, Madam President, under legislation and regulation. The panel will work with the Securities Commission on crafting DARE legislation amendments and promulgation of regulations as appropriate, inclusive they will also initiatives, update the government on prospective initiatives and reforms required to comply. We will monitor as well IOSCO, which is the International Securities Commission organization, which has a new initiative to advance a global crypto regulatory framework. As mentioned in the white paper, we're also going to look to propose a tax or levy to further advance digital asset policies and education throughout the country. In order to guard against bad actors, Madam President, the Digital Advisory Panel will create a risk management plan for digital assets in order to be able to properly insulate the jurisdiction against reputational risks. And we will also make regulatory and legislative reform recommendations that address other areas that are pertinent to digital assets, such as data protection and intellectual property laws. Of key importance announced in the policy and advanced by the Prime Minister, Madam President, is education and professional development, especially for Bahamians in this new industry. The Digital Advisory Panel will explore linkages between traditional financial services and fintech and digital assets to allow for transferable skills of our professionals in the financial services industry. We will provide continued education support, working with institutions such as the Bahamas Institute for Financial Services to develop programs to help professionals in the industry have those transferable skills. We're going to also develop an appropriate program with appropriate education partners to advance education and competency in coding. In that other place yesterday, Madam President, we heard about this need programs to introduce Bahamian students to the concept of digital assets, fintech, and where the financial services industry is going. It is at young ages, and exposure to these new developing areas are vital to the further expansion of our economic commitments, Madam President. We're not going to leave the consumers and the Bahamians out from participating in this industry, and therefore we have a mandate for consumer advancement and advocacy. The Digital Advisory Panel, Madam President, is going to develop a framework to allow Bahamians to access digital assets in Bahamian dollars. This might envision a modification or use of the sand dollar and possibly listing of the sand dollar on an international cryptocurrency exchange, Madam President. Recommendations will be made as to consumer protection rules and regulations will be developed to provide necessary protection to Bahamian consumers in the digital asset space. As pledged, we will work with the Ministry of Finance and the Department of Inland Revenue to develop a framework where Bahamians will be able to pay their taxes using Sand Dollar, Madam President. And certainly, as we have discussed here before, we are going to develop policies and incentives for Bahamians in the Family Islands to be able to utilize the Sand Dollar appropriately and consistent with its original purpose in order to have greater bankability in the digital space throughout our family of islands. And I hope our guests here today in their 2 months will have an opportunity to visit our family of islands and get an exposure of how life in the islands is different than life in our quote-unquote big city. The Digital Advisory Panel, Madam President, will have to recommend digital industrial reforms and business support for the advancement of the digital asset space. Policies will be formulated and interactions to facilitate the banking of digital assets through the country. Those engagements will have to be with regulators, with banking institutions, and, in fact, international correspondent banking institutions. We require a marketing outreach to support the advancement of the Bahamas as a jurisdiction of choice in digital assets. This will be in cooperation and coordination with the Bahamas Financial Services Board, Madam President. Matters related to dispute settlement, such as arbitration, and incentives for more energy-efficient utilization of digital assets will be paramount in the advice given by the Digital Advisory Panel. As you can see, Madam President, we hit the ground running once again. We promised the Bahamian people what we will do, and we don't just leave it there, Madam President. We actually do it. Madam President, in our digital assets policy white paper, we made it very clear that we will be compliant with international best practices and regulations and position the Bahamas as a jurisdiction of choice in the financial technology space, which would include digital assets and specifically digital asset service providers. In fact, sections 1.6 and 1.7 of the white paper provides that we'll review the latest guidance and implement any necessary changes to our anti-money laundering and countering threat of terrorist financing regime. Madam President, we committed to ensure that our legal and regulatory frameworks relating to digital assets are kept up to date and fully aligned with sound and accepted international standards, including the FATF recommendations. This is how the New Day government works, Madam President. We fulfill promises without hesitation. We create frameworks The Bahamas is currently rated partially compliant for recommendation 15 with respect to technical deficiencies related to not having legislation for licenses, registrations, commission to assess money laundering risks. We also, at the time, lacked business practices, including new delivery mechanisms for new and developing technologies and products in the space, and that was why we were rated less than compliant. The Bahamas is now undergoing its fourth enhanced report, Madam President, and is considered for rating technical compliance with FATF recommendation 15, which was revised after the Bahamas Mutual Evaluation Report in 2017. So these were evolving rules of FATF, and the opposition, I'm sure, made the point today, as they made the point yesterday, we have to be on guard for these changing rules. But you know what? This is nothing new to us. We are a financial center that has been successful for multiple generations by doing just. We don't run innovation. This New Day government has always acted with respect to financial services, Madam President. The identified deficiencies by the revisions have been largely addressed by the recommendation 15, which require the amendments we debate today, Madam President. The proposed amendments to the Act that we debate today are intended to address the final outstanding deficiencies related to FATF recommendations 15.5 and 15.6, which are subsets of the recommendations. And the reason we debate this bill today is that our application for re-rating will be submitted by the end of the day tomorrow. In fact, this bill on becoming in order to fulfill our obligation and have our the outstanding deficiencies relate to the obligation to monitor any person carrying on as a virtual asset service provider activity without the requisite registration to apply appropriate sanctions. Obligation to ensure that the virtual asset service provider is subject to adequate regulation and risk-based supervision or monitoring by a competent authority. Another deficiency is that supervisors have adequate powers to supervise and monitor and ensure compliance by the service providers with requirements to combat money laundering and terrorist financing. And the final deficiency listed was the ability to compel the production of information and evidence under oath and impose a range of disciplinary and financial sanctions. The enforcement authority of the Securities Commission is also expanded in the current bill to provide digital asset property where the Securities in our financial services regulatory regimes, and it is consistent with international best practices of a regulator. The amendment President, the objective of the bill is to address the final deficiencies outstanding in relation to the Bahamas' protection of its digital assets and its registered exchange regime. It enhances its range of international cooperation and address enforcement gaps and strengthens the Commission's responsibility of law. Specifically, the bill, President, Clause 2 of the bill amends the subheading in Part 5 and substitutes it with investigation, monitoring, cooperation. This amendment, Madam President, reflects the inclusion of new monitoring obligations of the Securities Commission as it relates to unregistered persons. If you're participating in the industry and need to be required a license, this is further strength to the Securities Commission to have enforcement powers if you're operating without a license, traditional with other types of regulatory responsibilities. 3 of the bill in Section 39 of the Act by using a subsection 39.3. This section obliges the Commission to implement systems to identify any person who is not registered under the Act, but who is carrying on purported activity of digital assets business in the Bahamas. The bill amends 5 of the Act by introducing a new section. That's Section 40A. This gives the Commission the authority to compel the production of documentation, information, other owned by a person. For contempt. So a penalty provision for non-cooperation with the enforcement and regulatory powers of the Securities Commission. The Securities Commission will be allowed to contempt proceedings against such persons. To end, neglect to give evidence, or they neglect to produce a document that is in their custody and control. Together, these two sections, 40A and 40B, address the recommendation 15 by the Securities Commission enforcement power, consistent with much of its other enforcement power over licensees that it has oversight over. Madam President, Clause 5 of the bill amends Part 6 of the Act and addresses the offenses, the penalties, and the sanctions by inserting Section 2A. This requires that compliance and sanctions identify fail to comply with any requirements of legislation. The section also extends the Commission's enforcement and cooperative authority. Clause 5 also amends Part 6 by inserting a new Section 42B that is a monetary fine, and that's a fine for noncompliance. And that fine is hefty. That could be as high as $100,000 as an instance. But if you are assertively and affirmatively violating obligations, these are firm regulatory provisions for the enforcement of the legislation against bad actors, something that the Prime Minister was very clear on. We are not a jurisdiction that are going to invite bad actors. Regulatory teeth and strength, legislative mechanism to ensure that this is in fact. Clause 6 of the bill amends Part 6 that addresses the sanctions by insertion again of a new 46A. This allows for freezing orders, which gives the Commission the authority to direct any person having a any fund, securities, or other property in order to hold them so they can out of the jurisdiction. Madam President, we're working very hard. The Securities Commission is working very hard. The Office of the Attorney General is working very hard. And the PLP government of the Bahamas is working very hard, Madam President. In addition to the amendment we debate today, we have undertaken additional measures in cooperation with the Securities Commission to provide a framework for regulation of digital assets in the Bahamas. We will, as part of our re-rating application, in support of the re-rating of Recommendation 15, the following. My colleague would have tabled today the Commission's Digital Asset and Registered Exchange, Anti-Money Laundering, Countering the Financing of Terrorism, and Countering the Financial Proliferation Rules 2022. These rules give more teeth in the form of rules in support of our re-rating. The Securities Commission also submitted its 2002 examination anti-money laundering activity with respect to on-site inspections of licensees. And the Securities Commission will be submitting a national risk-based framework that shows how it manages and regulates institutions and firms in this digital asset space. This is a new frontier. This is a frontier of tremendous growth and opportunity. This is a frontier that requires responsible, focused, and fast-moving policy and regulatory reforms on a constant basis. It is something we are committed to. It is something that our white paper specifically speaks to. It is something that the Digital Advisory Panel is actively working on day in and day out. The passing of this amendment is not only important to be compliant with international best practices and strengthen our anti-money laundering regime, but it is fundamental for the continued development of the financial services market, which naturally translates, Madam President, to strengthening the economic regime to bolster the middle class of the Bahamas and the middle class of Cayman National. The reform today, Madam President, the focused implementation of digital asset fintech regime will build successes and add to the story of the Bahamas as a financial center. Madam President, the Bahamas, the story of the Bahamas as a financial services managed to transform itself from a fishing and farming economy, often described in the terms of booms or busts, to an economy with a good standard of living, growing middle class, access to education, and a modern ICT infrastructure. This is the story of the policies of the PLP government. A PLP government that supports the growth of the financial services industry, supports the growth of opportunity to develop the middle class, and supports the modern framework to allow a new generation of Bahamians to view a future in the financial services industry. The financial services industry of yesteryear, Madam President, is not the financial services industry that the youth and the young professionals of this country know. It is a different industry. And you have to be progressive to allow the youth and the young professionals who want a career in this industry to have a career in this industry. And that is what this administration is doing, Madam President. This is what we believe in. We are a continuation of the development and the modern and progressive industry. It is something that will fulfill in its mandate to the Bahamian people. This is the policy of this New Day government. We have dedicated our government to providing hope to Bahamians, the second largest industry of the Bahamas. Unlike the prior administration, we have not given innovation creation opportunities. Keeping with this theme, I would also foreshadow that the continued work is being done, and we can expect we are actively working every day for innovation and progression. And this passing of this amendment is an example. The future of that president, so
Second.
In the spirit, in the spirit. Take us to church. I know.
The chair recognizes Senator Lightburn.
Oh boy. Madam President, it is an honor and privilege to stand up house this morning to send the bill to an act to amend their act, or the Digital Assets and Registered Exchanges Act of 2022. Every time I stand up in this place, I am humbled that I am given this opportunity to be the voice for millennials, to advocate for change in this country. All of us who are here, responsibility. This New Day government takes their responsibilities serious. And this past week, there were two major announcements on that program. First was the of the Grand Lucas Hotel. It was a huge step right there to the economy of Grand Bahama. Also, ground was broken on the Carnival Cruise Port, an initiative that was foreshadowed by the Member of Parliament for West Grand Bahama and Bimini in 2002, and the Right Honorable Perry Gladstone in May. Deal, people of Grand Bahama. But I say this, but we'll get to that. Because I think it was the Right Honorable Hubert Alexander Ingram who once said, some sow, but others reap.
Yes.
I would also like to congratulate my fellow Senate colleague, our Attorney General, the Honorable Ryan Pinder, for tabling the policy white paper on the future of digital assets in the Bahamas. That white paper sets out a vision and a framework to guide the Bahamian digital assets policy from now until 2026. In his presentation this morning, he thoroughly broke down and explained this amendment and the country's position and commitment to digital assets. But before I go on, I would like to express my sincere condolences to the James family. A childhood friend of mine was gunned down last week Friday in Flamingo Gardens. We both shared discussions about life, sports. Our last conversation took place about a month ago. Telling me about how he trying to better himself and move into the next phase of his life. But Madam President, he was unable to enter that next phase of his life because it was cut short. Turn my attention to the bill before us, Madam President. The bill amendment allows for resume monitoring and sanctions those who would operate in this business without proper registration. This act was first enforced on December 14, 2020, but this section evolved since then. Just a few weeks ago, the Bahamas Conference was held here in Bahamas. It was an exclusive gathering, leading investors and businesses in the blockchain and digital asset space. It was a great opportunity for us as a country to display our readiness to embrace this global economy. The amendment was apart from many countries in the world. The amended bill allows the Securities Commission to discharge penalties of $1,000 for any person failing to comply with a directive of the Commission made under Section 48. Businesses will find that the true cost of non-compliance will not only be financial, but also disruption and reputational risk. Clause 3 of the bill, the 39, introduced a new subsection to provide for the Commission to implement systems to identify any person who is not and who is carrying on, involved in, or purporting to carry on or be involved in the digital assets business. I'm sorry to sound so cliche, my Senate colleagues, but we are adding teeth. For generations, our people have developed a unique expertise as leading professionals in international financial services. As a result, the Bahamas has extensive capacity of capital who successfully navigated companies in the Bahamas thus far. All of this is a testament to our long history of excellence in financial services. I am hopeful in so many other industries and increase entrepreneurial opportunities for all Bahamians. This legislative framework will ensure that we position the Bahamas to be ready to take advantage of the world and technology is the order of the day, and the Bahamas is punching above its weight class in cryptocurrency. Right now, there are Bahamians who are the sector. A fellow classmate of mine, J. Cooper, is presently the Deputy General Counsel at FTX International. Watch now. This Bahamian millennial works daily with legal matters pertaining to FTX on the global stage and was born in Allenstown, Bimini, and then came to St. Anne's, and we became great classmates. Blue Waves. need to be told. These are that need to be highlighted for future generations of Bahamians. But we also make it clear, as is master in blockchain technology and digital currency, who's educating Bahamians about the full scope of blockchain technology and cryptocurrency. We have talked in this country for years about the brain drain epidemic. Opportunities like these can reduce brain drain and bring Bahamians back home. We cannot let an opportunity like this pass us by. We can diversify our country and at the same time allow some of our brightest minds the opportunity to come back and develop our nation. So in Finland once said, I see a country worthy and proud, brave and sovereign, a country where we Bahamians stand tall, independent and free, a country where there's opportunity for all and place that is secure future for those old enough. Great. This bill and its amendment laid before us in the House today. Thank you.
And the Digital Assets and Registered Exchanges Act to provide for the monitoring and sanction of persons carrying on or purporting to carry on digital asset business activities without the requisite registration. As many, the chair recognizes Senator Barnett Ellis.
Good morning. Madam President, as always, I am grateful to rise in this honorable place to make laws for the good government of the citizens and residents of Welcome to the students from Duke and Attorney General Ed, Go Blue Jays. Blue Devils. Soccer's in the front. Madam President, as I rise today, prayer experienced over the weekend. A reminder that extreme weather can happen at any time, even outside the hurricane season. We must make sure that our homes are always prepared to deal with an unexpected intrusion. I would like to thank the Member of Parliament for the great constituency of Killarney for jumping into action and arranging for water trucks to pump water in Killarney. Wow. Today, we are here to debate and contribute to the Digital Assets Registered Exchange Bill 2022, the DARE Act. A month ago, we debated the compendium of legislation to provide stronger enforcement measures to a suite of financial services legislation, referring to some of the high praise that the DARE Act received when it was enacted in 2020. The DARE Act was passed in November 2020 and came into operation on the 14th of December 2020. Was unable to govern. They were unable to chew gum and walk at the same time.
It's not a land.
President, DARE Act demonstrates unequivocally that notwithstanding the challenges they experienced over the last 2 years, the F&M administration draft and pass groundbreaking legislation that positioned the as a leader in the digital asset and happened on the 20th of September. The fact is that the F&M administration the research and pass the DARE Act. The DARE Act has provided access which has led to the employment of entrepreneurial opportunities, particularly for young professionals. Digital assets industry still seems mysterious, volatile, and high risk. The industry still carries the stigma of the genesis of market currency, buying suspicious items on the dark web. The passing of the draft demonstrates that the Bahamian government has confidence in the digital assets industry. Unfortunately, this confidence is not yet shared in many areas of the private sector because digital business with digital assets still seen as high risk. Bahamians experiencing barriers to access globally. The clearing banks will not provide banking services for anything crypto or digital assets related. So if you operate an exchange assets, banks situate in the Bahamas that facilitate crypto or digital assets are licensed to treat with non-residents. Those licensed to treat with will not be touching digital assets anytime soon. Creating and maintaining a well-structured legal framework is the first step to increasing public confidence in this budding industry. Occasionally, we are of like minds. The Bahamas, as he said, is a premier financial services. We have been blacklisted, gray-listed by many developed countries. We have been accused of eroding their tax base and laundering money for terrorists. But we did not fall apart. We have nothing to hide. We address their complaints. We turn those off. Professionals has developed at arguably breakneck speed over the last 15 years legislation which provides for more enforcement and access to our financial services records. Out of their concern has grown a robust compliance industry has provided countless jobs for our citizens and residents. Yet still, as the young people say, these developed nations won't let us be great. The goalpost is constantly moving, and we are continuing to rise to the occasion. We cannot afford our financial services industry to fail. It revealed that the European Union is considering a ban on crypto firms from tax and money laundering havens, an already high-risk industry in high-risk jurisdictions. Fortunately, the European Commission has raised doubts about that proposed bans. Europeans are concerned about the lack of information about the national level. They are concerned that the lack of transparency could be used for tax evasion, money laundering, and terrorist financing. It's boldly that we are an independent country with an inherent right to autonomy and self-determination. We must balance our need to remain competitive, remain in the game, and this requires that we face never-ending cooperation requirements. I am cautiously optimistic that we will be able to assure them that we are willfully transparent jurisdiction and that we will that digital assets be fully regulated and transparent. We continue to publicly educate people, both locally and abroad, that we have mitigated the risks associated with digital assets. This is an industry that is growing, and that not to treat with digital assets would be an opportunity loss. Right now, there are obstructions which interfere with Bahamians' ability to treat digital assets. Some of those obstructions outside the government's control are not. Industry professionals are waiting for the government to provide clear regulations on how Bahamians can treat with digital assets. Will we continue to need exchange control approval? These amendments are making to attract more assets. This legislation builds upon the by the previous administration. I support this amendment without reservation. Let us demonstrate to those that want more cooperation that we have not had. As I conclude, Madam President, through you, I wish to remind the citizens and residents of the Bahamas that although restrictions have been relaxed, we remain in a pandemic. Wear properly fitting masks, remain 6 feet apart, wash your hands, get vaccinated, good luck to those students that will be taking the GLAD exams next week. May God grant them the focus during this last week of studying. May God grant their parents, and may God bless the
Contribution, Senator Barnett Ellis. As many. The chair recognizes Senator the Honorable Barry Griffin.
Madam President, as I rise today in this place, I want to thank God for seeing my path place. I thank the Prime Minister for trusting me with the opportunity to represent the Bahamian people at this truly remarkable time in our development as a country. Please allow me to join you, Madam President, in welcoming Chief Superintendent Crystalline Skipping to our I'd like to extend a warm welcome to our visitors from Duke. Duke Devils, welcome. Madam President, one of the things that makes the Bahamas so great is our innovation, our ability to adapt to changes, confront new challenges, ensure that our people continue to have one of the greatest qualities of living in the Western Hemisphere. It's how we became one of the most sought-after tourism destinations in the world. And it's how we became one of the preeminent financial services jurisdictions in the world. Improve and transform our financial services products and the industry at large. Looking at the display that was the FTX Salt cryptocurrency conference, to shape the future of the Bahamas. With the constant stream of new apps, data, technology, it's truer than ever before that we continue to educate ourselves. President, I am happy to speak about digital asset and registered exchange bill. Fintech is a fast-moving and exciting sector, and I'm sure it's clear to all now that this government has Financial services makes an enormous contribution to this country. And with every passing month, fintech is punching harder and higher importance. We are now one of the leading digital assets in the world, and certainly the leader in the Caribbean. We now boast that we are home to one of the world's largest tech unicorns, and over the last 6 months, we have gotten more interest in our industry than all of our Caribbean counterparts combined. President, this is huge because I believe part of the way we make ourselves the world's preeminent financial sector and part of the way we move to more economic growth is by having the technology, the expertise, and the companies here onshore in the Bahamas to enable us to do things faster, bigger, better. We've empowered our regulatory and invited industry to the table to make recommendations. That's why we're wasting no time in implementing them. One of the recommendations was the Digital Assets Council that the Attorney General announced in this place when we last met, a body that will be a force for turning fintech and in our jurisdiction, and that the Bahamas can build on our success for, and how we implement our Bahamas as a fintech financial center. I'm glad to hear today from the Attorney General that the Council has already met, they've set their mandate, and they're working. We have put the Bahamas in pole position to ensure that this continues, a mission to which we are very much committed. Madam President, never in the history of commerce have been we now know that this technology will have profound effects across business, commerce, government, and virtually every facet of our lives moving. It's a challenge and it's an opportunity. Today, our government is laying the foundation how we respond. Madam President, to be clear, our government wants the Bahamas to be a global hub, the very best jurisdiction in the world to serve and if you want to be people and to the world, if crypto technologies are to be a part of the that if we commit now, if we act now, we can lead the way. Madam President, overall, this bill seeks to tweak legislation that we practice and lead the way in the Bahamas rating application seek a compliant rating for Financial Action Task Force Recommendation 15. We are mindful, however, that as crypto technologies grow and become more interconnected with the core financial system, to implement systems to identify and monitor persons who are carrying on or purporting to carry on digital asset business activities. As my fellow Senator Quinton Lightbourne said, this legislation here really puts teeth in the oversight powers of the Commission. Madam President, we are also aware that crypto assets have proven to be attractive to criminals and to hostile actors. Take active steps to prevent the misuse of crypto. Specifically, we extend the enforcement and operative authority of the Security Commission and provides for financial penalties for persons failing to comply with the Commission's directives and establishes a framework for the Commission's implementation of the said penalties. so the world will see the Bahamas ain't no play jurisdiction. We will attract the best our prime minister has said in we know high standards in the financial system, and on that, this government will ensure that we will not compromise. Madam President, enormous potential to chance to maximum this shows that we aren't to standard, rather that we will have robust and effective legislation that will actually boost our standards and standing by giving people and business the confidence they need to invest in the Bahamas long term. Crypto impact many sectors of the economy and locally will be dynamic, which means that the way we regulate the industry must also be dynamic. So here we are, just a few short months of administration. The industry will lead the pack. So the General, I am happy that it is regulation as a static thing, but rather something that we refine and rewrite as we need to, tailored, but also and shaped in the regulators and the practitioners who advise both. We all must work together and learn from each other to maintain the high standards and respectability the Bahamas are known for, all while working at the pace that the speed of innovation demands. So, President, in the presence of the Attorney General and the Minister of Economic Affairs, I say that this DARE Amendment Bill should be the first of many amendments, regulations, and guidelines we see in this place. I am happy to see that that's already happening with the laying of documents today. This government is a government in the industry are regulation of in the Bahamas, which would create conditions for stablecoin users, issuers, and service providers to operate and grow globally and allow consumers to use stablecoin services with the confidence of the world Bahamian regulatory regime behind them. I am that the General Council has already put this within their remit. Madam President, again, this government is working. Madam President, Bahamian law and our legal services court have been a huge asset to us in our criminal endeavors. The Bahamas enjoys a strong reputation of a stable political system and advanced legal system with world-class attorneys. This will continue to play a role in making the Bahamas a fintech financial hub. We must enlist the and advise on the application of Bahamian law in this field. One project they can undertake immediately is considering the legal status of organizations. This is something now coming up in practice, and its legal status is uncertain at the time. Projects like these, we remain at the cutting edge of innovation, just as we did with trusts in the 1930s, our international business companies in the early condominium provide the use of these new technologies. All of this crypto activity is happening against the backdrop of exciting new developments surrounding the next evolution of the internet, known as Web3. While we don't know Web3 into the digital space, the table, we be there leading the way and seeking the greatest economic opportunities for Bahamians. Madam President, this who are looking to re-domicile, FTX being one leading example of that. I hope it's clear to the Bahamian people and to the world that this New Day government is playing a leading role in this push. Unlike the US or the European Union or our other counterparts, we have a small number of regulators and a single that can set the overall framework and take quick, decisive action. We can move nimbly and swiftly, and let me tell you, we have a determined, unified, and single-minded government that will do just that. Madam President, we must put the F back in our financial services. We have to have foresight to see what is coming so that we can position ourselves to take advantage of opportunities. We must have focus when approaching our policy objectives, and we must have to know how our actions or inaction in this case affect the lives of Bahamians. It is only clear, critical thought that will take us to the next level. Madam President, there is a genuine opportunity to build on our financial services strengths and to unleash it and unleash its potential of crypto technologies right here in the Bahamas. By making the Bahamas a hospitable place for crypto, we can attract investment, generate a behemoth of new, good-paying jobs, and facilitate a wave of groundbreaking new products and services that Bahamians can offer the world. Madam President, I am happy to support the Digital Assets and Registered Exchanges Amendment Bill. Thank you.
Thank you for your contribution, Senator the Honorable Barry Griffin. As many? The chair recognizes Senator the Honorable Reuben Ramming.
Thank you, Madam President. You know, when we were growing up, many of us grew up on things such as Sesame Street. I grew up as a fan of Star Trek. I've become rather versed in all the episodes from Captain Janeway, Captain Picard. I'm amazed at how the original James Bond was Captain Kirk, how he satisfied all alien disputes with his machoism. I look around at the graphics and the digital enhancements of the screen from the time that you could almost see the string moving the Starship Enterprise around the screen to the cutting edge technology used in the film production. It causes me to reflect on that story in Genesis of the Tower of Babel, when God himself said that when man is unified and focused, that nothing he imagined to do could be withheld from him. And I want to speak about the imagination as it relates to this, because Star Trek began to place in our hearts an imagination that some people don't realize, Madam President, we live today. When they had their communicators that they could communicate from Earth to space, where they had their visual screens that they could communicate. Now we take it for granted that we could video call anywhere around the world with WhatsApp. The Apollo 11 capsule, and let me go back to, you know, the days when we had the bubbler cell phone. The technology in a bubbler cell phone back then was more technology that was in the spaceship that sent man to the moon. What we have in our hands today is equivalent to super computers. And it's amazing how we take it for granted. It's interesting how some persons are making a living just off their phone. And some spend their living on a phone and can't feel their families. Leadership is about vision. And governance is as a relay. I've watched our Golden Girls, I think it was Marion Jones, when coming to the anchor point, she got run down. And I think we saw that a few times where our athletes just, I say, bust off. And the same thing is true about governance, you know. But Kenny Rod just said something that is interesting. So you got to know when to hold out, know when to fold up, know when to walk away, know when to run. Don't count your money while sitting at the table. It's time enough for counting when the deal is done. And I marvel many times when I hear our AG as it relates to this, and this administration seem to be so busy and counting their money many times even before the deal is done. We saw that, as mentioned, with the Grand Bahama project, which the substantial agreement is not yet signed and some of the details being worked out, but we celebrate the progress. We hear it today as it relates to this amendment, that it was such grand work by the Davis administration making this happen, and sometimes you just take a deep breath and say, you know, it'd be like, in every game, a cheerleader is appropriate, but for God's sake, at least wait for a touchdown, unless you're just motivating your team because you see something in failure that the other person hadn't seen. Because this is a non-contentious bill that we should be celebrating. Why did I use those analogies? Because there are some fundamental things we need to do. Let me start from the end. First of all, I want to look the Bahamian people in the face and say, listen here, man. You got to believe in this sand dollar. You need to open up your accounts and your wallets. You need to show the world that you believe in your own product. And we need to step up to ensure that our digital currency is more pervasive in our society, more respected in our society. Let's get these myriads and millions of tourists exposed to this so that we could even enhance the international reach of it. Why do I say this? We got to believe in ourselves because, like a relay, it is important that the government do what they're doing now, which is making the amendments, because we are in a competition financially. The struggle and the stress and the strain that we've had against our financial services sector, it didn't just start now. Man, Cayman been running against us from that time. This FTA blacklisting and all this other, and it is fair when you look at the moving goalposts and the unreasonable consideration and their lack of doing due diligence before they even put us on gray list. We have to call it foolishness. When they themselves, the same FTA, they don't even uphold their own standards. I sometimes look and tell them, go do that to Delaware, what y'all doing to the Bahamas. FATF, thank you very much. And so when we look at these things, we are in a competitive society. Competitive society, so it's incumbent upon every government to take the baton and move on. Keep moving, and trust me, there'll be fresh victory in literally every year, because every year they're going to come up with something new. Fresh legislation that we're going to have to come up and push through Parliament as we're doing now, so that by tomorrow we can get to meet some deadline by the weekend. That's the life. So this is not a hurrah, 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 but it is still important to know that the government is consistent in understanding the drive of this. Now appreciating legislation that we would have passed to encourage the silicone and also the financial markets and all the digital markets to be able to come and participate in the Bahamian economy. So what am I saying? I'm encouraging us to believe in ourselves and what we're producing, because the victory and the initial hurrah had already been attained by the Bahamas, and we're going to have more victories because the market is very strong. When the sand dollar was launched in 2020, under the former administration, and the good thing about it, I like the flavor of it because it was launched in the family islands. And that's good because it sends a message that, you know, our attitude is we no longer just so Nassau-centric, not despite and not lacking the consideration of the reality of this being the capital. But when that was launched, no other than PricewaterhouseCoopers themselves spoke about the Bahamas sand dollar and rated it top. And it was long before, this is when the current Prime Minister was in opposition. So it's real folly when we stand up here and take a bill that should be non-contentious, should be a carrying on. And yes, I am appreciative that the government is moving swiftly to make amendment to keep the momentum going, but it should not be, oh, look at the great new day. Man, come on, man. We're beyond that. We're beyond that at this point in time, because the impression that we have made on the global scene was actually made from 2021 when that was launched, and none other than PricewaterhouseCoopers stood up and said, listen here, man, Bahamas, you know, 400,000 people, drop the young people, let's drop it down to 250,000 adults. Y'all hitting higher than Cambodia. One village in Cambodia is more than the Bahamas. Your central bank digital currency is hitting higher than China. Rate number one. That was a new day. And it will be a new day tomorrow. Hit higher than China. And so the sand dollar was already in place, and the digital environment had already seen the signals and the preparation that you can come to the Bahamas. Make it the next Silicon Valley. Make it the next digital hub. Bring us to a point whereas we could probably reclaim, not probably, we should reclaim some of that which we have lost to Caymans and other jurisdictions around the world, and also bolster our financial services industry. It is important for it to be released in the Family Islands because it signals from under the Minister administration a new day for the Family Islands. That where banks were fleeing the jurisdictions of Family Islands for many other reasons, and they having to rely on web shops and other institutions, now we find that they have access to the digital wallet. That in itself was critical to the development of our country and development of our nation. But here is the warning why I said there's time enough for counting when the dealing's done. Because like Star Trek, the whole world is moving towards a digital currency. And the reason why we have these regulations and the amendments, which are rightly so adding more teeth to the law, is because there's a lot of scam going on out there. And that's why it's so critical to have digital currency that is backed by central banks in countries, which gives it the highest level of rating and insurance and assurity, and gives a level of security within the minds of persons, that our digital currency is just like the Bahamian dollar. But yet, even then in 2021, we found out that there are at least about 60 other countries at that time who was, from 2014, trying to do what we got done on 2021. And trust me, China, who the whole world banks with and borrows from, isn't going to be second or third to the Bahamas very long. So we can't slack our riding. We can't make it political. We got to make it national. Because the time is going to come, like our Golden Girls and our athletes in relays, where we will have to run down China or dive towards the line to keep the gold standard that we have obtained from the launch of this currency here under the former administration. And what makes this so interesting is the former administration saw a vision and understood the trends that we were going through, even when it was not sexy. And I use that term because I had this administration speak about a lot of things they're making sexy. But even when it wasn't, because that's vision. And this administration will have to make some decisions that may not be at the time of the making sexy, because you have to see down the road. That's what leaders does. Actually, quite frankly, that is divine. To look beyond, think generationally. So this bill is indeed very, very critical, especially considering when we came into office in 2017, when we found that under the former administration, our country was introduced to junk status. Under the NPLP administration. And we have some heavy lifting to do. We have some heavy lifting to do to improve our sovereign rating. And models like this and encouraging companies like cryptocurrency, the industry that just came to invest to put the capital here in the country and others, all of these things would add more to it, and considering that the shocks that we would have experienced during the COVID-19, that they are still hovering over our country like a buzzard. At any given point in time, we see the probability of global reactions to the new forms of COVID and other things. We see the global reaction as relate to the war in Ukraine. We see many things that could actually shock our nation. So plan as we must, we still got to keep our finger on the pulse of what's going on around us. So indeed, this is not a controversial bill. This is actually, it is pleasing to note that we, in a bipartisan way, could agree to push through, move effectively, be nimble, like Muhammad Ali, float like a butterfly, sting like a bee, when it comes down to protecting ourselves from, I would say, non-friends in foreign jurisdiction who bring upon us these mobile goalposts of regulations and procedures that, quite frankly, we have to address. Because we may be an independent country, but as it relates to our policies and as it relates to money, we are interdependent, and our relationships with corresponding banking is very, very critical, because although we are archipelagical and we know about many islands, we are not an island unto ourselves in the global economy. So sadly, we must put up with the unreasonable actions and just simply make the necessary legislative changes that we have to make at times to ensure that we get where we need to go. So with that, I want to commend this government for continuing to relay. And I know for a fact that as this evolves and as the U.S. steps up to the plate, as they are now considering the same, and as other countries, these other 60 countries, step up to the plate, that we need to make sure that somewhere amongst all of those other currencies and exchanges out there, that the Bahamas still has a very unique ranking. And I would hope, and I'll use the athletic term in closing, that in the digital Olympics for the global currency and the digital realm, that every now and again, when the podium is put out and the rosaries and the crown is brought and the medal is done, that we'll still hear that national anthem playing every now and again. We may not win it all.
Lift up your head.
We may not win it all.
To the rising.
But as we did with the start of the sand dollar, every now and again I want to hear that lift up your head.
To the rising sun.
See how the world marks the manner of your bearing.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Because we as a little country has been striking and hitting above our weight for a long time. And I'm proud as a country to know that we are keeping the good foot forward. And I commend the government for bringing these legislation and these amendments to ensure that we remain fluid and capable to defend ourselves and to prosper in this digital society. So with that, Madam President, I support this bill.
Powerful. Powerful.
Go home.
Thank you, Senator Ramming, for your contribution. The chair recognizes Senator the Honorable James Turner.
Good morning. Thank you, Madam President, for once again. Good morning, and thank you once again, Madam President, for the opportunity and fellow senators to be in this group of fine individuals. But before I get going with my contribution, I once again want to welcome the members of Duke. There's a saying we have in the Bahamas that you may not be familiar with, but when I look at your faces, I'm reminded of the youngins of our country. So when I see you here, I welcome you here, because you are among, you are among some of our country's finest. But you know, my fellow Senator Raming made a reference to sexy in many terms a short while ago. And it aroused some curiosity in me, Madam President. Because when I came in, I looked at Chief Superintendent Skippings. And I know that she has been an exemplary officer in the Royal Bahamas Police Force. But when the mention of 32 years of service, it's almost unbelievable. It is almost unbelievable. Because there is something that happens, I tell you, to Bahamian women, that at the age of 21, the aging process just stops. It's in the water. So I want to once again say congratulations to you because you have done your country well. You have done your country well. And as a Bahamian man, I continue to be very proud of Bahamian women because as we spoke of hitting above your weight, Bahamian women continue to hit far above their weight. Now, this Digital Assets and Registration Exchanges Amendment Bill, there is nothing egregious about it. There's nothing threatening here. And as such, my contribution to support it will reflect that. However, Madam President, in the spirit of full declaration, there are some things I ought to share on the onset. I've come to learn that as Bahamian senators, when we get together here, when there's pain, we share some of it. And when there's pleasantry, we should share some of that as well. Coming from Grand Bahama, I feel good, I feel great, I feel fantastic. We had a super last almost 14 days that we've been waiting for a long time. I'm telling you, I came into Nassau this morning clothed in the enthusiasm that is truly permeating Grand Bahama. We saw that with the presentation of the deal that's about to take place for the Grand Lucaya Hotel, there's a lot of optimism because this is not just about jobs coming back. This is about returning and restoring dignity to people. Because I will tell you something, there's something about getting a gift, but there's something different about earning that gift. So when we put our people back to work, when we give them opportunities, this breeds a new era of enthusiasm that is unparalleled. So this hope is wonderful. It's a super thing that's coming to Grand Bahama. And I got to tell you that this breeds a sense of prosperity that we have not experienced in a long time. So you must pardon us if we seem to be overjoyous, because we've seen the hurricanes, we've lived through the pandemic, so it is now time that we find reasons to celebrate. And then, you know, we could have stopped there. We could have accepted that and we would have been fine. But the reality is, when we saw the ground breaking for the Carnival Cruise Port, we smiled even wider. The truth is, if it was only a groundbreaking, that would have been nice. But the reality is construction has begun. Construction brings jobs. So when we say, and others say that it is a new day in this country, we embrace that because it is certainly a new day in Grand Bahama. That's fantastic. But I got to tell you, there is even more. Because in this business of tourism, you have to continue reinventing yourself. You have to do some things to keep you relevant. We saw that the Margaritaville did its inaugural voyage into Grand Bahama Island. This vessel will call into Grand Bahama every 2 days. 2 days? Every 2 days. Wow. Bringing with it new business that will touch the cab drivers, straw vendors, tour merchants. And believe it or not, Margaritaville is the only cruise ship that's coming to the Commonwealth of the Bahamas that will bring passengers that will stay overnight in the hotels. So what more? Huh? So when I tell you, let me tell you something. Senator Arisia whispered earlier, she said, whenever we have guests, she whispered, whenever we have guests, we should be on our best behavior. Were it not for our fine guests, I believe I would do a jig in here this morning because I feel that good.
Grand Bahama, I'll join you. I'll join you. Yeah.
So you see, Madam President, we have observed the growth that is occurring all around the Bahamas. And we now declare that Grand Bahama is now poised to rise once again and return to its rightful role in the islands of the Bahamas. The shipyard. Oh, man, you want me to give them all one time? Yes, there's more. Yes, there's more. we see the development in the shipyard where they will be presenting even larger berths. Some of the largest in this region is taking place at the Grand Bahamas shipyard. There again, more opportunities for our people and meaningful jobs, jobs that require true skills. These are lifetime opportunities for the fine folks in Grand Bahama. So again, please pardon my enthusiasm if I break into a jig here this morning, because these are good times.
We'll all do a flash dance.
And happy days are returning to Grand Bahama. So this is indeed a wonderful time. Now the digital assets, yes, really is a wonderful time. The Digital Assets and Registered Exchange Bill 2022 amendment really provides for the monitoring and sanctioning of persons carrying on or proposing to carry on in the digital assets and activities business who may not have the required prerequisite registration. Whenever there's an opportunity, there always needs to be some fence around it to ensure that it goes in the direction that we want it to go in. We know that the whole digital asset environment is a tremendous opportunity for our country, but we cannot allow it to go willy-nilly or go haywire, so we see these amendments make a great deal of sense in ensuring that this business advances in the direction we wish it to. With the addition of sections 40A and 40B, the bill allows for powers to compel and to enforce contempt violations for those who may deliberately seek to be uncooperative. And we know cyberspace, there's all sorts of things, all sorts of people, all sorts of opportunities there. So you've got to have appropriate regulation to ensure that the business moves along. Other sections of the Act go on to provide penalty guidelines and such provisions of advice that lay out the Commission's authority as relates to penalties and its process. And that is good, because you have to be able to penalize when things go wrong, or at the least have the threat of it, if you are going to maintain order. There are additional new elements to this bill, such as Section 46A, which addresses freeze orders. But all in all, the changes provide for a more reasonable structure in this cyber world. And as we advance, it would not be unusual to see multiple amendments associated with these things. Because truly, this cyber world is a shifting landscape. And if you do not shift with it, you will be shifted because of it. As such, Madam President, I stand in full support of these amendments, and I look forward to this industry growing as we move along. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator James Turner Roll, for your contribution. As many, the chair recognizes Senator the Honorable Maxine Seymour.
All right, man.
I would like to pause to recognize the fact that it's National Emergency Medical Services Week, Madam President, and we all know, well, even if we don't, at some point, sometimes we find out how important emergency medical services are. And back in the late 90s, I had the opportunity to work at the Ministry of Health, and some of what I did, among other things, was to oversee the health careers marketing program. And so we went into the schools and we exposed students to various careers in health, like, for example, physiotherapy and occupational therapy and nursing and so many other careers in health. And back then, I worked closely with an emergency medical services professional by the surname of Cash. And we had a mannequin called Randy. I'll never forget Randy, Madam President, because when we would set up those health careers marketing fairs, people would, you know, go to physiotherapy, go to wherever. But when Randy showed up in the ambulance, you know, everything was over. Everybody rushed over to Randy, the mannequin, and we would demonstrate how emergency medical services worked, so students could tell and decide if they wanted to be a part of it and be able to revive Randy, the mannequin, and and do other stuff. I asked for Randy the other day. They tell me he's on little life support these days. But they say Randy is still around. And so I want to salute all those who work in emergency medical services around our country. We really depend on them. I know in 2005 I took a ride on an ambulance with my favorite aunt. Of course, that didn't work out for her. And I can remember to this day, but you know, that was my one opportunity to ride on an ambulance and be in and out of traffic, but more importantly, to watch them try their best to revive her in that moment. And so those few critical moments when something happens, we really have to salute those who work in emergency medical services. Madam President, I too would like to welcome your classmate and my fellow Rotarian, Chief Superintendent Chrisling Skippings, to the chambers today, and thank her for her 3 decades of valuable service to our country. And more importantly, Madam President, thank her for being someone who little girls from Bimini to Inagua could look to and decide that, you know what, I could be a police officer when I grow up. You know, policing is for me as a girl. And so I appreciate what you bring in terms of service to our country. I appreciate the fact that you have helped to tear down some of the stereotypes in traditional gendered roles like the police force. And I really do commend you, and I'm happy on your promotion and everything else. You deserve every honor. You've given exemplary service, and I am grateful to have you here today. And I could understand that you were in good company in school because look at you two sitting opposite each other in very influential positions. And so good to have you here. Hello, Bethel. I'm happy to have him, Madam President. We're just out of conclave. So you know that jiggy he's feeling about Grand Bahama? You know, as an F&M, I feel like dancing too. We just had a successful conclave and things are looking promising for our party. We're readying for 2026. And so, you know, the AG has another 4 years of comfort in that chair. And so we're getting ready. And so welcome to our immediate past president of the torchbearers, Mr. Carlisle Bethel, to the Senate today. Welcome. And of course, Madam President, we'd like to, like St. Anne said yesterday, you really want to go there? Relevance, you really want to go there? Okay, and I'd like to welcome the students from Duke as well. Welcome to the Bahamas, welcome to the Senate, and thank you for giving up your summer. I'm sure you could be anywhere doing so many other things, but here it is. You've decided to spend 2 months in a foreign country helping to make a difference to build our community, and I really appreciate it in advance, the work that you're going to do at BAMSI and really to help our community. And just so you know, you're welcome after you work hard these 2 months, and I hope you work them really, really hard. And so after you work hard these 2 months, you're welcome to come back on a leisurely trip next time on vacation. But do put in the service, and we do appreciate it. We need to work together as global partners in really building better communities. And so thank you and welcome. Madam President, I stand here in support of the amendment of the Digital Assets and Registered Exchanges Amendment Bill 2022, which is a bill, of course, for an act to amend the Digital Assets and Registered Exchanges Act to provide for the monitoring and sanction of persons carrying on or purporting to carry on digital asset business activities without the requisite registration. And so really to punish those who need punishing, you know? And so, Madam President, these amendments are primarily in response to international changes, as we've heard here today. And so I'm thankful that the New Day government is kind of veering off a little from its usual pastime of criticizing the former administration and its actions to actually build on the framework that the F&M administration put in place. So it's good to see that they're diversifying it a little, you know, nowadays, or today at least, because you know, honestly, if you listen, you'd think we didn't do anything. And so I'm happy that they're building on what it is that we did do in this regard. And so, Madam President, in November 2020, history was made in our country when the last administration, you know, the F&M administration, introduced legislation for the digital assets industry, which is more commonly referred to by the name of one of the more popular digital assets, and that is the cryptocurrency. So in 2020, a new industry was born right here in the Bahamas when the landmark Digital Asset and Registered Exchanges Act 2020, the DARE Act, was passed. And that created the legal framework needed to establish the industry, regulate the issuance and sale of digital assets, allow for investment, business, and employment in the field, and ensure proper regulation of it all, Madam President. That is to really make sure that our country remains compliant with international organizations on anti-money laundering and counterterrorism financing. The legislation introduced by the former administration was partly developed in response to queries our country had received from business persons who were interested in venturing into this method of raising capital. So we leveraged, Madam President, best practices from the United States and Hong Kong, Switzerland, Malta, and elsewhere, and we developed the Act. According to Christina Roll, the Executive Director of the Securities Commission of the Bahamas, in describing the SCB examination of other international financial centers, and I quote, "We left no stone unturned in analyzing what others are doing to ensure DARE creates a digital asset environment that is on par with or exceeds what is being offered in other jurisdictions." End quote. Madam President, it is absolutely wonderful that we are further developing this new industry in this digital space. And of course, this is an industry that has helped to diversify the ownership of wealth worldwide. The transfer of wealth now, Madam President, is going to millennials. And if I'm not mistaken, this has been described as perhaps the biggest transfer of wealth in human history. And so I'm pleased that the Bahamas has an opportunity to be a part of this global movement. Of course, there will always be skeptics, and this is no different, Madam President. That is why most wealthy persons, and I could ask around, will tell you that the trade-off for success is often inordinate proportions of risk, Madam President. And I am not giving investment advice here today because that's not my role at all, and I absolutely cannot predict the future of digital assets. But what I do know is that it presents a new investment opportunity. What I also know, Madam President, is that back in 1976 in a garage, a group of guys started a computer company. Now, there's a gentleman that many of you may not have heard of. His name is Ronald Wayne. And he wrote the first partnership agreement, Madam President. He wrote the manual for Apple, and he even drew the first Apple logo. But 2 weeks after founding Apple and receiving a 10% stake in the company, he sold his Apple stock for $800. $800, Madam President. And today his stock would have been worth more than $55 billion. Madam President, there was Mike Smith. He was a music executive, and he traveled to Liverpool, England, and he was very impressed by an up-and-coming band. So he invited them to Decca Records to the London office for an audition. And on New Year's Eve, they played, it was 15 songs, Madam President, that they played, but they managed to get rejected. And then their actual words from Decca Records were, "Get our groups are on the way out, and the Beatles have no future in show business." And that was another missed opportunity, Madam President. And of course, hindsight is 20/20. But for every missed opportunity, no doubt there are countless others that turn out to be failures. And so you never know. Nonetheless, it is a blessing for a country like the Bahamas that is desperate for diversification of industries. We've been writing essays in high school about diversifying industries from I was in high school, which wasn't that long ago. Like he said, I stopped at 21. I stopped aging at 21 like the other Bahamian women, like Chief Superintendent Skippings over there. But the reality is that we're desperate for a way to diversify industries in our country. And so it's good to now be at the start line with digital assets like cryptocurrencies. And of course, Madam President, that is why the last administration was not about to become to digital assets what Ronald Wayne is to Apple. And that is why the FNM saw fit that the bill was written. That's why the application for FTX started. The process started under the last administration. We could see, Madam President, that the four-piece Get-Our group of digital assets is likely to revolutionize the world of digital assets, just like the Beatles revolutionized the music industry. And we wanted our country to be in on it. And now it is a privilege to have the second largest digital assets exchange company in the world headquartered right here in the Bahamas. And in speaking about the selection process, Sam Bankman-Fried, the FTX Digital Markets CEO, credited our country's regulatory framework, more specifically, the Digital Asset Registered Exchanges legislation, or the DARE Act. You know, the same one I just told you was enacted under the previous administration. Well, the CEO of FTX said that that was key in attracting FTX to the Bahamas. So it is great that we are here at the start line of the digital asset business. And we have a chance, Madam President, to do it right. Madam President, Bahamians make excellent, excellent, excellent employees. And we know professionals who are engaged in top positions, not just at home, but all around the world. We are qualified and we are capable. We have good work ethics, we are loyal, and we are honest. And you know, like the Attorney General described the new frontier of tremendous growth and opportunity. The reality is, Madam President, that we are and we have moved from a fishing and farming economy to a more modern landscape. But you know, the irony of life is that as we create these opportunities for the middle class, is that life, the circle of life often comes full circle. And so here it is now. We have moved away from that, but now the world is moving toward a fishing and farming economy. And, you know, just talking about organic stuff and greenhouse stuff and, you know, really just trying to grow. And in addition to that, sometimes, Madam President, we develop, you know, we build, we put concrete everywhere, and we develop our islands. And then people retire and try to save and move back to a place where there isn't too much development and all of that. But the reality is, like I was saying, Madam President, is that we make really great employees. And as I sat and I listened to the other side, I said, you know, I ought to go home and update my CV and see if I could slip it to the Lion and see whether or not I have any opportunity for employment, if I have any opportunity for employment in this new industry. But, Madam President, my concern is that we are often too employment-driven as a country. And, you know, trust me, it's fabulous to hear that a Blue Wave from Bimini is a girl boss in the field, you know. But the reality is, Madam President, that I want to see ordinary Bahamians become owners too, and not just employees. It's good to get good positions in digital assets. It's good to get all the benefits and the health insurance and everything else and the salaries. But, Madam President, I want to see us owning a piece of the pie as well. We must make sure that there's access for Bahamians to own some of the digital assets and fintech industry, and that we become less like our #1 industry, Madam President, where there is foreign ownership predominantly and Bahamian employment. Madam President, I do not want the digital asset industry to end up like the tourism industry, like I said, with foreign owners and Bahamian workers and foreign owners. This is a new industry, and we have an opportunity to build it out to include Bahamian ownership and perhaps foreign employment as necessary. Foreign investors are fantastic, don't get me wrong, and we want to continue to welcome them. But we want to punctuate their presence with a comma, Madam President, and not a full stop. We want Bahamians to own a piece of the pie. And let's make it easier for businesses that do qualify under the DARE Act and meet FATCA requirement. Because if they can't open up a bank account, Madam President, because of the risk level associated with small business owners, then they will be unable to operate in the space because you simply cannot function without a bank account. When it comes to ownership and investment, Madam President, I encourage the government to really work to reduce the regulatory hassle that creates somewhat of a deterrent for Bahamian participation. We need to work towards the liberalization of foreign exchange in the Bahamas. Madam President, the process of sourcing investment dollars is simply too complicated. If a Bahamian wants to go and get some US dollars to go to Walmart, they could go into any commercial bank, simply present a plane ticket, and they straight, Madam President. They say how you want it. You want big notes, you want small notes, or how you want it. So what is stopping us from allowing currency exchange for investment, whether it is in traditional stocks and bonds or in digital assets? We need to make it easier for ordinary Bahamians, Madam President, to get U.S. dollars from central bank to invest in digital assets and to really help curb the illegal market that I hear is operating. You know, we need to address some of the bureaucracy because, you know, I'm told some Bahamians, they go and they get the $9,000 they need and they fly over to the U.S., they deposit it in a U.S. dollar account, and then they use that account to invest. But Bahamians should not have to participate in some sort of investment black market in order to be able to invest. It should be easier for ordinary Bahamians to invest the $500, $1,000, or how much ever they might have. So obviously we need to really look at the process, and that way we could put an end to some of the illegality. Because technically, as far as I'm aware, when you return from the U.S. with that money you went to shop with, you should return the unspent money to a commercial bank, and then they should send it to central bank. So bringing this U.S. back and spending it and getting change, and you know, your boy who's cash or your girl who's cash and they saving it on the side for you, I'm not even sure that's supposed to be happening, Madam President. And so we have to look at our framework, regulatory framework, when it comes to foreign exchange, and make it more accessible for Bahamians to be able to invest. Because, of course, I understand that we have to keep some of these U.S. dollars for important purchases like fuel for BPL, especially when the hedging isn't around. And we understand that when the U.S. dollars come in from tourists, that we need to save it for what matters and spend Bahamian dollars locally. But I just cannot understand, Madam President, that why is it that if I could exchange my Bahamian dollars for U.S. dollars to buy clothes with minimal hassle, then why is it that it's so hard to get the money to invest? And in fact, when I get the clothes, nobody asks me to come every year and show them my Aunt Taylor dress to see whether or not, you know, it's still in good shape, whether the buttons are on it, and that kind of thing. But every year, regulators have to see, you know, you have to present your portfolio statements on investments. If you do invest, for those who are able to, and you have to say, you know, what you have, what you spend, what you earned, but nobody asks to see your clothes or your refrigerator or whatever else it is you might have gotten your U.S. dollars from the commercial bank to purchase. And so why is all of this necessary? Just how a Bahamian can go and get $10,000 to go to Walmart or Sawgrass or Aventura or Florida Mall and purchase depreciating consumer goods, it should not be so difficult to get that same $10,000 to purchase stocks and bonds and digital assets. So just as we regulate the industry, Madam President, we need to make it easier and more accessible for Bahamians to be owners. And that is the legislative agenda that I want to be a part of in this place, Madam President. And I say to the Attorney General, the sooner the better, because of course I serve at the good pleasure of the Leader of the Opposition. And so the sooner we could bring that type legislative agenda here, and I can be a part of that, I would be very pleased as a Bahamian to serve in the Senate at that time. So let's expand the wealth among ordinary Bahamians, Madam President. It's all fine and dandy, but we need to make it happen for regular Bahamians. And of course we know that the New Day government keeps telling us that they comprise of all sorts of smart Bahamians. Foremost among them is our Attorney General, and so I know that they will find a way, he along with his colleagues, to make it happen and to figure out how we could get ordinary Bahamians, single mothers and fathers, to be owners in this space. And so I don't want, Madam President, for this digital asset industry to become, again I say it, like our tourism industry, where there's foreign ownership and Bahamian employment. So let's make sure that not only the Bahamian big boys who maybe could afford the lawyers and accountants and other technical professionals can play in this space, but regular Bahamians can become owners and not just employees in the digital asset industry. I, Madam President, want to see widespread Bahamian ownership. Let's make sure the average Bahamian can invest with minimal hassle. Let's simplify things for the young Bahamians who are putting funds together to start companies. Madam President, let's make things happen in the Bahamas for Bahamians. I want to see a Bahamas for all Bahamians across the Commonwealth to be able to participate, whether they are children, whether they are single mothers, whether they are persons with disabilities. Let's make it happen in the Bahamas for Bahamians. And so, Madam President, again, I want to say that I support the Digital Assets and Registered Exchanges Amendment Bill 2022, and I look forward to more ownership in digital assets by Bahamians. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your contribution, Senator Maxine Seymour. As many? The chair recognizes Senator the Honorable Darren Fickstock.
Good morning, Madam President, and good morning, Senate colleagues. Madam President, I would like to firstly join you in welcoming and congratulating Chief Superintendent Skippins for her 32 years of service. The Bahamas, and we all thank you very much for your service. Also to join welcoming the students from university. We thank you on being here and contributing to the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. Thank you. I take liberty, and at this time I would also like to say congratulations to my niece, Shaquania Pickstock, who recently graduated from the university. And I would also like to congratulate many Bahamians who would have recently graduated as well from university. And I would take this opportunity to speak with them directly and welcome them back home and to contribute to the Commonwealth of the Bahamas, and to say that there are opportunities bound to explore in their relevant studies. Madam President, we meet today on the Digital Asset and Registered Exchanges Amendment Bill 2022. This bill involves Digital Asset Registered Exchanges Act, also known as DARE Act 2020. With these amendments before us today, we are again how here our little act go. But we continue this with the revolutionary innovative mechanisms in the new digital currency innovations of these new times. Madam President, the enables of digital token and or digital coin exchanges and spells out a provision of services to this direct issue. These amendments are of critical importance to maintain the integrity of jurisdiction and is a continued compliant with international best practices requirements. I was also the Attorney General, Senator Quinton Lightbourne, and Senator Mary Griffin laid out in detail what the seek to achieve. So I will not rehash in detail of those matters. I should also point out to the general public that debates on these issues in this chamber should be an invitation to the public to personally obtain and read the relevant legislation being debated. The Government Publications Office is at least laws that are tabled in place. And there is also the Public Gazette, which is printed and published in 2 leading newspapers, which announces and details some critical areas of government intention on public policy and focus. Madam President, people are hungry to know more about digital currency, the digital currency era. And the fact of the matter is, if you are green, just Googling the topic on a search engine may actually leave you more confused than not. Now is the time we could use the thinkers and the speakers of yesterday who kept the country politically afloat and give the newspaper, radio, and television news informative and well-researched positions to share their readers and audience. In the UK, they call them think tanks. Madam President, tell me, American motivated personality, have drummed in the head of a year that the only opinion worth listening to was that, and I quote, an informed opinion. Quote. My President, whilst that on these issues, the burden still rests on the general public to go steps further in examining and understanding what new laws and amendments and regulations are acted. In communication aids, there can be neither excuse nor any prohibitive bar to citizens taking out time to do as the apostle said, and that is to study to show ourselves more approved. The Davis-Cooper administration has committed to provide the highest in tertiary education to Bahamians who want to be in the digital asset space. This is in an effort to ensure that Bahamians can take advantage of new industries and experience growth. The Bahamas emerged as an international financial center decades ago, and much attention has been placed by successive governments in the continued expansion and growth of our financial services sector. The advent of the currency facilitates the urgent implementation of legislation to provide for such services. The Act created the legal atmosphere for the issuance, development, sale of digital tokens and other digital assets. This is so critical to our financial service development, and even most who are citizens and residents want to engage in business, sale, and purchase of digital tokens and digital assets. It should have the legal framework to do so without encumbrances brought by in hindering an election. Today, the governments before us, the country has regulations with ambiguously and plainly stated and implied integrity in the digital currency and asset regime of this jurisdiction. This is a, Madam President, our nation as we seize the day. One of the things about the Bahamas Financial Services Center, our integrity and grit and resolve to keep it clean and transparent should be synonymous with spell it out. The Bahamas, your A1 financial services center, just like our environment, just like our we are aware of the national good, and we are going all the way with our national objectives. Madam President, let us step boldly into the new adventure with our to be the best place and best placed to take advantage of the exciting new industry. Madam President, while we embrace the 21st century and the Bahamians of my generation and my parents' generation step boldly into this future, we have to pause and reflect some contrast, which if not properly dealt with or debated and discussed and solved. 3 weeks ago, former leaders, distinguished ministers, global athletic personalities, and sports stars, former prime ministers, presidents, and ministers assembled here in our little Bahamas to attend Crypto Bahamas. Received, heard, and viewed and seen around the globe. Prime Minister Davis again rose to the occasion, similar to the intellect and charm and dignity and nationalism he and the First Lady displayed the recent royal visit. 6 weeks later, the Prime Minister Cooper, with responsibility for investment, informed our country that he had a deal with a reputable foreign investor for the sale of the Grand Lucayan Beach Hotel in Freeport, Grand Bahama, for $100 million. At long last, hope and help has come to the long-suffering brothers and sisters of our second city, Freeport. My city is being reprogrammed. Last week again, in East Grand Bahama, Carnival Cruise Line broke down for its mega investment in a rebrand for Bahamas. Open for business, Madam President, but we are all about business, and the business is about the betterment of the lives of the Bahamian people. Again, Madam President, this week, the Minister of Transport and Housing announced a partnership with the government to bring to life another housing development known as This housing development will set a new standard in affordable housing for Bahamians. Congratulations. However, Madam President, all of so much good, great, wonderful, and marvelous developments, betterment of the country and the Bahamian, and heard some disturbing items. Madam President, heavy rains worsened our fears for climate change and rising sea levels. On Monday, 16th May, Prime Minister Davis, a fair and a just man, was at pains to lay on the table of the law forensic accounting the calamity we knew as the National Food Feeding Program. Madam President, the Prime Minister, a fair and a just man, laid on the table of the lower house a report as it relates to the National Food Feeding Program. It was an audit and a governance audit, one and the same. Millions of dollars of taxpayers' money accounted for. Money. Madam President.
Senator Bixton.
Madam President.
Senator Fent, did the chair recognize Senator Handfield? You have the floor.
Thank you, Madam President. Point of order. Even though I here and
Can you speak for the chair, please, Senator Handfield?
Misleading.
Okay. In what way?
Even though we
Senator
said,
Handfield?
give me an opportunity, Madam President, I'll tell you. No forensic audit was laid. Other places today. My understanding of it, it is a report akin to a governance audit on procedure. And I don't know why we continue to say this is a forensic audit. It is not. That's the only point I wanted to make, you know. And I have to say that.
Sure. I'm sorry, Senator. Reword. I can reword the type of report it was, please.
Madam President, I stand corrected. It was a report of sorts. But the point I wanted to make, Madam President, because I don't want to get caught up in, you know, that it was this or that. It was a report that was done and professionally done to give an overview of what went on in the program. And the point here I'm trying to make is that millions of dollars of taxpayers' money went unaccounted for. That is the point.
Point of order.
And that's the truth.
Point of order. The Senator,
Can you
Madam
please wait
President,
to be, the Chair recognizes Senator Darren Hatfield.
The Senator, Madam President, continues to mislead this august body. The report indicates very clearly that documentation, which perhaps could have accrued for some 10 million, were not coming. That's far from saying that $1 million went missing. Right? And that was at the point of the conduct of the report. And so who knows, the NGOs might, whomever has this documentation, might be forthcoming. And I think that the Attorney General, people who don't want to produce documents, they might be forthcoming and produce those documents that could account for this $10 million. And so I want to caution the Senator that NGOs do a good work in this country. They come from all across the world to do it. And we want to be careful how we impugn, right, or make assumptions. It's good character and conduct.
Thank you, Senator Hatfield. Senator Fixer.
Madam President, I in no way am impinging or maligning or impugning the character of NGOs. What I am saying very clearly is that the report that was done concluded that monies weren't accounted for. Right? That's what I'm saying. And furthermore, just to be clear, and the former government failed to account, right, or cause for the accounting. So that I'm very clear, the of identified, regardless of whether the exceptions have since been rectified. The procedures that were executed are solely for the purpose of assisting the country in its examination of the National Food Distribution Task Force.
Senator Hatfield is already tabled?
Madam President, that
that's the one that was tabled by the
document has been tabled, and it's the National Food Distribution Task Force. Madam President, agencies which were quick, just to address Senator Hatfield, agencies which were quick to monies in the program are now reluctant to operate with the report of the President. So we are today being asked to pass this regulatory framework amendment today as we step boldly into the new stratosphere of digital currency. Yet, millions of dollars of the people's money and abuse intended or derelict of what should have been a noble social services program to put food on the tables of Bahamians during the cruel and debilitating brought about by COVID-19 pandemic. The joblessness and the mental wear and tear, the sickness and the deaths, at the end of the day, what is that public monies are indeed unaccounted for, period. It seems we are directly out of the opening lines of Hail to cities. It was the best of times. It was the worst of times. It was the age of wisdom. It was the age of it was the epoch of incredulity. It was the season of darkness. It was the spring of hope. It was the winter of despair. There are some who will put on the mask of duplicity and deception. The pretentious will put on their own backs the indecent boast that will be made of the former administration's agenda to the digital currency legislation. But how can they sing these shallow praises by the rivers of Babylon when millions have gone unaccounted for and squandered in the national food feeding program? How can they?
Point of order. I don't know that he can prove that millions of dollars were squandered in the feeding program. No. He said squandered. He said squandered, right? Come on, man. You're supposed to be advising these fellows in the law, you know. You hold.
Thank you, Senator Bill. Senator Pickstock, can you please respond?
Madam President.
Senator Henfield has the floor. I'm sorry, Pickstock, Senator Pickstock has the floor.
Too many
yeah.
Madam President, maybe I should just read the report.
The report, just for the record, the report has been tabled, and Senator Pickstock, you're adopting the report as
designed and implemented. 1. 2, there was no evidence that controls operated effectively for financial reporting and monitoring. 3, key business procedures not documented or were not appropriately standards and necessary reference in the performance of the food program operations. 4, there were no evidence provided related to the validation or monitoring issues. 5, request for vouchers outstanding as of the date of this report. Participants did not appear to have received and or maintain sufficient and appropriate documentation and support related to the task force and the program's execution and operation. Specific report monitoring and beneficial distribution per their assigned zones, expenditures incurred and settled, insufficient support or no support provided for some samples tested. No minutes provided. There were no minutes maintained. As such, no support was provided to corroborate weekly meetings, instructions given, received, approvals, agreed, granted, and changes made throughout the food program. Ultimately, submissions of data or no data submissions was pervasive, and items remain outstanding from all entities as at the date of this report. There was no evidence observed to support readily available data and documentation. This is detailed in the information prepared by entity IPE. Listing include this report and applicable section. There was no accountability. There was no evidence.
Senator Pickstock, Senator Hanfield made the point that you used the word squandering. Are you now withdrawing the word squandering and replacing it with no accountability?
Madam President, I am simply saying, very clearly.
Point of order. Madam President.
No, wait, 1 second. I just want him to answer this point first, and then you can.
I rise on the point that will solicit the answer that you're looking for. You know, Madam President, I want to say this to you as delicately as I can. As the free and fair arbiter in here, we have to try and refrain from putting words in the mouths of colleagues from the chair.
I'm trying to you stood on a point of order earlier.
I appreciate.
He gave a response, and now I am trying to ensure that the point of order you made is addressed.
Yes, ma'am, I appreciate
so
your
that's
point.
why I'm asking him a question. What are you doing at this point?
Yeah.
Now, before he could answer that, you stood to your feet, and that's why I asked you to wait a second, let him respond, and then I will take your response.
Yes, because you make the very point that I rise to make. You said to him, do you want to replace the word squander with accountability? That is improper. You cannot, Madam, words in his mouth.
The chair can exercise discretion.
He's my friend. I love him. And he's a colleague at the bar. No, Madam President, you cannot. You cannot exercise putting words in the mouths.
I did say that.
Please quiet this place.
Madam President. Madam President.
Let's have order. Let's have order in the chamber, please. Just give me a second, please.
I'm trying to finish a point, right?
Please complete your point.
Thank you. Thank you for your indulgence. If the member said squandered, it's either stricken from the record or he recounts.
Well, I was getting to that, Senator. If you had allowed me to, we would have progressed there.
So, Madam President, then, with the greatest respect, the only question for him was, are you moving the word squandered from your comments?
Madam President.
But not to say to him.
Point of order.
Not to say to him. Do you intend to say account? And that's the only point I make, you know.
Thank you for your point. Please resume your seat.
Point of order. With all due respect to my colleague, the senator, I think it's wholly inappropriate for him to be directing the chair as to what to say or how to rule. Specifically, if he has an issue, Rule 36(3) indicates that a senator shall not dissent from a ruling by the president or the chairman except by a substantive motion for that purpose. So unless he intends to bring that motion, I think it's wholly inappropriate what he's doing right now, Madam President.
Thank you, Senator. Thank you, Senator Griffin. Senator Pickstock, can you please resume your seat? Senator Hanfield, we would like to resume the debate. Thank you. Senator Pickstock, we were back to the issue with respect to the use of the word squander. And I would like for you to please indicate
Madam President,
the appropriate word.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I stand to replace the use of the word
microphone. Yes, it's on.
Yes.
His microphone is on.
Replace the use of the word squander with lack of accountability and transparency. which I also alluded to
Thank you.
earlier.
The word is stricken from the record. Squander.
Madam President, I would like
Please proceed, Senator Pickstock. Thank you.
Continue, and I'm continuing on with the general findings, just so the public is aware of how their affairs were being dealt with. Exceptions were noted relative to required data inputs for weekly dashboards. There was no evidence of controls in place to address data accuracy and completeness. Controls related to the completion and submission of the food program request forms did not operate effectively. 74% of the forms had no signatures affixed thereon. 19% had no signatures. Material inconsistencies were noted. Inconsistencies were noted between the Food Task Force request forms when they compared to the department's NGO's records. There was no evidence of the task force policies and procedures. Madam President, what this seemed to suggest to me is that the government then, the Minist government, with all of the ministers and cabinet sitting around the table, some of whom sit around this table, were all there when this lack of accountability was taking place. And it needs to be accounted, Madam President. Madam President, I would continue. There are some who will put, Madam President, the life of the new Parliament following May 10th, 2017 general election commenced on the 24th of May 2017. The former Prime Minister was elected to office on a landslide, and his mantra, "It's the people's time," was so genuine and homespun. With 8 more months remaining in his constitutionally elected 5-year term in office, the former Prime Minister, to borrow the words of the Foreign Public Services Minister Fred Mitchell, listened to the PLP or was misled by the PLP and called a snap general election in September 2021. It was a fatal political mistake. The Bahamian people, recognizing it was truly their time to reclaim their time, went to vote and ended the already shortened time of the former government. The question for me is, what if the forces of good had not pushed the former Prime Minister to squander it all? As Rudyard Kipling said, on a dare and toss of the dice, and call a snap general election. Suppose he had gone the additional 8 months, what would have been the astronomical sum of the people's monies tossed down the rabbit hole in the food feeding program? Could the country have survived 8 more months of parks and playgrounds? This is the house that Jack built. In 8 more months, would there be any more PVC pipe left at the Water and Sewage Corporation? What milestone of death would have been fastened to the necks of Bahamian people for a tin and brandless corned beef, sardines not in oil, nor water, grated tuna, knockoff Kraft macaroni, cousin of mackerel in tomato water, unsweetened Kool-Aid, and shredded turkey wings? Dickens says, it was the season of light. It was the season of darkness. Madam President, let us look at the new shining city on a hill, which the Davis administration is building under the new modern building code of the Bahamas, post-Dorian, and cognizant of the threat of rising sea levels to our islands. This digital currency amendment legislation before us today is being hailed by practitioners as the attendant files as absolutely correct and will position the Bahamas for the dynamic entry and journey in the digital currency market and business. Madam President, I will vote to pass these dear amendment items into law. In so doing, I hope the record will reflect for historians who will come many years later to review what we are doing here today. It is my hope that those historians will say there was a legislative team which struck a progressive blow for the digital currency market. And while doing so, we condemned without reservation corruption in all its forms as we charted a new course for transparency and accountability in public life, statecraft, and the people's business. Madam President, there has been a defense put forward by someone, a pitiful and ignorant plea and mitigation. I call it so pitifully sad. The historians of tomorrow, I predict, will write that a prime minister, whether he realizes it or not, is accountable and responsible to his nation for any program or public policy initiated on his watch. And should such policy or program be proven to not have passed the basic smell tests of accountability and transparency, and should standard checks and balances associated with such programs been skewed, skirted, hijacked, eliminated, or ignored, and contrary to the rules and practices of the public service and the protocols for public financial management and reporting, whatsoever and wheresoever the damage and harm done to the public purse under such circumstances is an absolute enabling of corruption. And a prime minister and a minister of finance should be prudent enough to recognize that even by omission, ignorance, or incompetence, the very system was corrupt, and by the prime minister's adherence and empowerment, the system was highly susceptible and contagiously corruptible and open to corruption by and through the prime minister's unilateral endorsement, conduct, carriage, and management of the program, any program, and the personnel personally chosen by him to administer the same. Wake up, Doc. Corruption is not about a dollar in your pocket, which is not yours. I want to wake up in a time when international newspapers, indeed the whole wide world, cites the Bahamas as the go-to jurisdiction for good practices in disciplines and enterprises like the digital markets, gaming, tourism, and hospitality studies, cutting carbon emissions, and renewable energy. I know we have the ambitious and driven local force with a passion and zeal to rise up and take first place in the world by our ingenuity and humility, and in our very own unique Bahamian way. In order to do this, we must be truthful to ourselves. Our standards of excellence must be realistically high, and our tolerance for mediocrity, pandering, corruption, and incompetence must be surgically removed, Madam President. It was the best of times. It was the worst of times. Thank you, Madam President. It was the best of times. It was the worst of times. It was the age of wisdom. It was the age of foolishness. It was the epoch of belief. It was the epoch of incredulity. It was the season of light. It was the season of darkness. It was the spring of hope. It was the winter of despair. Long live the nation we call the Bahamas. Through it all, yes, through it all, with our faith in God, we will get it done. Madam President, I thank you.
Thank you, Senator Darren Bickstock, for your contribution. The chair recognizes Senator Darren Handfield.
Madam President, I thank you. It's tough to follow such a great literary giant. Yeah. Giant in the literary arts, and cannot understand, it appears, in my view, a simple report which speaks to procedural misconduct, if I can use that word, or procedural negligence. And you know, it states so. Chief Superintendent Skippings, it's very good to see you. You are one of those persons of whom we are very proud in service to your country. The report is covered by a letter from the Financial Secretary. And in that cover letter, it says that the body that did this report says this, I believe. We make no representations regarding the appropriateness of the agreed upon procedures. You know, the member stood here and read from the report and could not come to the place where he said, where he asserted 10 million was just evaporated, gone, missing. Nobody know what happened to it, right? Our report consists of a detailed listing of procedures performed and our findings in relation to each procedure, including any errors or exceptions identified, regardless of whether those errors or exceptions have since been rectified. So we don't even know by now. I mean, well, we suppose they're not, because the Prime Minister was saying yesterday that they weren't.
The report says it.
The procedures that were executed are solely for the purpose of assisting the ministry in its examination of the National Food Distribution Task Force and the National Food Distribution Program. Now, I say all that to say this. We, on this side, in the F&M, we don't condone corruption. We do not. Yes, ma'am?
Senator Handfield, I want to, are you adopting the entire report?
No, this was tabled, this was laid this morning.
I'm asking if you're adopting you're quoting from the report.
No, I don't have to anymore because it's laid.
No.
You have it before you on the table. This was laid in both places, here and here.
Right.
It's the same thing.
You're quoting. I know you're quoting from it.
No, well, what I'm trying to see, once he picks it up and starts using it, or once it's laid in here, I can use it. I don't have to qualify why I'm using it, and I mean that respectfully.
No. I understand what you're saying.
Okay. Now, we don't condone corruption on this side. If there's corruption to be found at the end of the day with the National Feeding Program, let the chips fall where they may. We continue to say that. But to paint our government with a brush of corruption because of some procedural wrongs in a food program, feeding program which fed thousands of Bahamians, which this government is not doing now, despite how tough things are, which fed thousands and thousands of Bahamians all across this country, I think is wrong. Let's wait for the facts to come in before we impugn these programs in the way that we're doing. It is so pitiful that you would paint an entire program which did good, feeding Bahamians, with a brush of corruption because of procedural mismanagement. And that's all the report is saying, you know, procedures were wrong. And I'm not going to make any excuses as to why those procedures were wrong. I don't care. If they were wrong, we must find out where they were wrong and fix them. But we must also move to feed the Bahamian people today, instead of impugning a project that sought to feed them. Whilst inflation is at 40-year high, you got time to come in here and run around with this kind of nonsense? Inflation at 40-year highs. We don't know where the price of gas going. We don't know when we can get out of this stuff with Russia and Ukraine, which causes inflation and the supply chain issues to be further exacerbated. And, you know, I keep hearing this reference about people sitting around the table. I sat around the cabinet table. Ministers here sit around the cabinet table now. And if you're fortunate enough, or the small percentage of us to sit there ever, you will realize, or unfortunate, you will realize some things. Because I could stand here and say that this same government now that sits refuses to act upon the laws of the Bahamas in the Public Procurement Act of 2021. And I will be truthful in saying so. And so when you live in glass houses, my brother, be careful when you pick up them big stones to throw. We came here in support of a bill that we believe, an amendment bill that we believe is good for the Bahamas and good for the Bahamian people. And that's all we came here to do, support the bill. Not to be savaged and asserted as criminals. That's wrong. Yeah, man. Yeah, man. Yeah, man. The only thing he outright do is call me corrupt outright. So I sit around a corrupt table. Yeah, man. Yeah, man. Yeah, man. I even didn't get to tell the people from Duke how my brother loved Paolo. Who are? They probably got frightened. Right? We are all very excited about this undertaking and this industry. Very excited about it because we believe that it is good. And I know the AG channeled that we would try to take credit for this, but governance is continuous. That's all we want him to say sometimes. Governance is continuous. And the amendment you make it based on a report from the FATF. Right? So it's not something novel or, genius. The whole act is innovative. And just say that, because we in the same team when it comes to this. We on the same side. We pulling for the Bahamas. We pulling for the Bahamas. And I want to be your voice to say some things that I could not say when I sat in another place, when I was in Europe and places like that. I want to be your voice to do that, to tell them how wrong they are. You want to move past the lunch? Or you want to cool me down?
No, I don't want to stop the Senate in its stride. But, Madam President, I move that the business of the Senate to continue beyond 1 p.m. today.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded that the business of the House continue beyond 1 p.m. As many are in favor?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Aye.
Those opposed? The ayes have it. The motion is carried. The business of the House will continue beyond 1 p.m. Senator Henfield, now you can
Madam
resume.
President, unless you think I'm an indisciplined man, I'm not, I assure you. I served almost 36 years in the Defense Force, and I've never been reported for being indisciplined or rude. And so I'm not.
Honorable.
Sometimes we get caught up in the throes of and the cut and thrust of the democratic process. And be passionate about what we believe. I know I am. That's why I'm here. We embraced the compliance of which the AG spoke. We embraced that. But we also embrace the advent of FTX in our country and what that might represent in this field. And I read somewhere where someone likened it to the arrival of Atlantis. How Atlantis revolutionized the tourism industry by the product that they brought here and likened the proprietors of FTX to a Sol Kirshner. That's high praise. That's high praise. But we're not ignorant of the notion that, I can't remember if it was Dickens or who said this, that we will not go quietly into that good night. Was that Dickens? That was Dickens. Right? They will not sit by those who watch in the international community. And my colleague spoke very eloquently and I thought succinctly to this point, and allow us to go on our merry way, embrace what digital assets will provide or bring to the Bahamas and our financial services sector, and just leave it as that. That's just not our reality. And we all know, I believe those of us who are old enough might easily recall how in 2000 we had to change some things in our banking industry because, as Senator Raming indicated, we want to be able to operate within that divide unhindered by sanctions. And so I read something else that was interesting. where I think it was Paul Morse who indicated in the Tribune, a very, very respected Bahamian. I'm no economist. I like to hear all sides, you know. Yeah, we all have our own opinions, and his indication was that, like mine, and I paraphrase, they're not going to sit there and just allow us to go and have a merry way unless we do some things with our tax structure. Because that's what they always come with. There's something wrong with your tax structure. What you might have to do. You in the chair, you figure it out. you want me to stand here and say that? I said before, and here, you know, I said before, we're gonna have to look at how we tax.
Can you please address the chair? I'm giving you protection that you always seek.
My friend and I only having a little banter right here. He's my good friend too, you know.
Please kindly address the chair, Senator Henfield.
No
because
problem.
the next few seconds you'll be saying, I'm not giving you any protection.
Okay, thank you for that protection. Thank you for that protection. We've been trying to share this cloak of a tax haven since 1999 or 2000, when we had to go and change all of the financial laws that we had, basically put in these things. You know, they always invariably come back and say, be trying to hide funds from terrorism, or what the other one is they use? Money laundering. Money laundering, and those two always walk hand in hand. And I think my colleagues quite rightly expressed and indicated how these goalposts continue to move. Every time we catch up with one set of rules, the rules change for us. And we find ourselves in here amending and amending and amending again. We have to do our part to address issues that may cause our system to be challenged. And one of those things is looking at the way we do taxes in the Bahamas. We need to move away from this regressive form of taxation anyway that we currently have, that no government has seemed to have found the courage to do. I know you're having it looked at, the tax system. I think you indicated it the last time you were here. And I don't know if you're going to do it, but it has to be done. You know, they change us every 5 years, you know, the last 25 years, so you might as well do the heavy lifting. They have in the past 25 years or so changed the government of the Bahamas. And all of it ain't because of the bad things the government do contrary to popular belief, because every government, I believe, does good things. The Christie administration did some good things. The Ingram administration did some good things. So you can't stand here and tell me the Minister administration didn't do anything good. That's unreasonable. Because evidence of some good that we did is being exhibited manifested right here today. Yeah. Because you are amending an act. So how, you know, when we come here and present ourselves, we must appreciate and understand that you don't do so in isolation. You know, I hear people cuss us to high heaven about the Grand Ukiah and the investment of $60 million. Yeah, it may have been a bad deal. But it was a deal that we made, we thought, in the interest of the Bahamian people and Grand Bahamians. And we want Grand Bahama to do good, my brother. When Grand Bahama does good, the whole country does good. The Minister for Economic Affairs can sleep easier when Grand Bahama is doing good. And so we applaud the efforts made in Grand Bahama. Yes. But don't try to take all of the approbation in isolation, all the praise you want for yourself, man. That belongs to God. And so we got to be careful when we do these things. We didn't want to see another set of Princess Towers in Grand Bahama. And that's why we entered into the arrangement to save the hotel and to keep Bahamians at work. That's why we did that. And so the government of the day now came and made sounds like a grand deal. And we hope to God, for the sake of the Bahamas and the people of Grand Bahama, that it is a grand deal. We hope it's the best possible deal we could have gotten as a Bahamian people. But I always say in here too, you know, the proof of that pudding is in the eating of the pie. And so we gotta wait, we gotta be a little cautious sometimes before we get out and making grand pronouncements, because we made many of them in my day that never materialized, that didn't go anywhere, but they were good stuff. I remember one deal in Sandy Point, hole in the wall, a wonderful deal. I don't know where it is now.
It's still going. They're going to say he created it.
I don't know where it is now. No, he and I worked on that together. If you want a full facts, he and I worked on that together to bring it to the place where it was. And I wish that members who are fortunate enough to sit in these places like we are, let's try to be a little bit more objective. I know the politics is nice. I know the politics is good and nice, and as my friend here, Senator Raming said, sexy, right? But at the end of the day, what relevance, man? But at the end of the day, we all in the same one ship together called the Bahamas, the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. And the amendments we make today will strengthen our digital assets legislation toward compliance, aimed at mitigating the assault on this very important and extremely promising financial services platform by any bad actors. That's what we're trying to do here today. These amendments put in the hands of authorities coercive powers to be used against bad actors, to summon papers, to summon them, to find out who they are when they want to operate within our system, trying to protect us from the world. And so these amendments signal to the world that we will do all within our powers to lessen the risks posed to the industry and the country by nefarious actors. Those who wish to hide and launder their monies, and those who wish to sponsor terrorism. We don't condone them in the Bahamas, just like we don't condone corruption in the FNM. We don't condone corruption. And so we want to say to the world that when you invest in the Bahamas, in our financial services sector, you can know that your monies are safe. Because we're doing all that we can to safeguard your interest and the interest of our country. And so we are as optimistic now as we were then when we passed the DARE Act in 2020, that many opportunities will become available for Bahamians to participate in this innovative and exciting industry, Madam Speaker, Madam President, I'm sorry. I believe my colleague, who's in that other place, Crazy Thompson, described where we are as a defining moment for fintech in the Bahamas. I heard another member, the Honorable Alfred Sayers, referred to us as global leaders in this regard, and I subscribe to both views. I subscribe to both views. We are global leaders in this regard. And we must work hard. We must continue to work hard, not to rest on our laurels and pat ourselves on the shoulder and the back and saying how good we're doing or how great and grand we are because we're in a new day. And come on. Not how great and grand we are. We got too many problems in the new day for that. Chief Superintendent skipping them can't get no rest for the challenges that we have. We got big challenges, and we should put our minds towards solving these challenges collectively instead of trying to be divisive. Trying to be divisive all the time. Even when we come and concur, say, let's debate this today. We ain't getting no joy here. It's course me gonna have to now talk to my caucus to see what we can do. And you know, we'll be well within the rights of the law to do so. But we are nationalists. We don't all come here just to see what we could get. I've been serving this country now for all my life, all of my adult life. And many of you have. And you do so in the best of your ability. Then you do so. You know, Madam President, I ask, as I want to do almost every time now in this place, how the man in Dundastown, where I'm from, how the man in Bainstown, how the man in Matthewtown in Agua, and down to Grand Key, how he might personally benefit. Yeah, I know how he might personally benefit from what we do. I know that when the country does well, we all benefit. But I think Senator Seymour alluded to this, and perhaps others, that we have to find a way. It would be to cause the man on the omnibus, the jitney, to benefit from all the efforts that we make. Everything we do in government should inure to the benefit of that man on the jitney, in his security, and in his economy. That's my belief. And we have to find a way. It'll be a tragedy for us to be leading the world in the way we do digital assets and all the rest of it. And Bahamians are not benefiting from the little investment of their $50 that they probably, $500 they probably got out of the ASU. And so we have to address. I know we can do things in foreign exchange, and I know that we can have transactions across borders, up to, I think it was what, 100,000. I know. I recall that's what we did the last time we were in office. That we opened it up so that more than the restrictions that were on it, to $100,000. And so I understand when the country does good, we all win. But Bahamians must be able to feel what we do as governments personally to them. Because, you know, they're to the place now, I think that's why they change us every 5 years. They can't trust what we do with the monies that we raise. You know? No, but they've been changing more than us for 5 years, every 5 years. They've been changing both of us. That's an enigma. That's something that we got to try and figure out. You know? Bahamians, and I'm very happy and pleased to hear the AG reiterate what the Prime Minister said yesterday about education in this field, because we need to prepare our people to participate in this very lucrative field, we believe, right? To be engaged as software developers and coders and blockchain miners and more, all of that good stuff. But it should be noted now that in the digital divide, you don't have to be in a jurisdiction to participate in it. And so perhaps we should look at the law, and I don't know if it will be restrictive in the law for us to say or signal to the world that because FTX or whomever else is coming is headquartered in the Bahamas, that you can't have people outside of the jurisdiction participating. That wouldn't be fair. And so we have to perhaps look at the way we look at labor policies, where if you can find that talent in the Bahamas, that talent should perhaps be your first choice, even though we know in a capitalistic-driven industry, people should have the right to determine who run their business. But we also know from the days of His Excellency, the Honorable Lady Hannah, we were pushing toward this thing for Bahamians to be able to participate before someone else can come here and participate. And so we commend the government for what it's doing here with this amendment, and it is our hope and prayer that this industry will take root in the Bahamas and not be plucked up before it is given that opportunity to mature into what we believe it can be for our country.
Thank you for your contribution, Senator Henfield. As many?
For the wrap-up? Thank you. Madam President, I want to thank our colleagues. One, the opposition for allowing us to debate this today. It's important for the national interest in advancing the country and advancing a new sector in financial services, but generally for a nice and healthy debate. I thought it was very well, and we got off track a little bit less than we have been before, so I thought we did rather well. Just a few follow-ups and comments to some of the debates. Mostly with respect to Senator Seymour, frankly, but, you know, Mr. Henfield as well. I just want to correct one thing. The Senator seemed to indicate that policies of the country, as we moved, and I spoke about the development and growth of the country in financial services, and referenced moving from what is known as a farming and fishing country into grander items. I want to be clear. I don't think either administration took any action that would abandon or not in furtherance of the development and advancement of fishing and farming. So I don't want that to have been alluded to. Correct. You did. You did. And you know, we have a very progressive Minister of Agriculture and Marine Resources now that is doing everything in his power to continue to grow that aspect. So I just wanted to do that for the record. I think what I was alluding to is that at one point in time, we may have been viewed as a very narrow economy of a fishing and farming country. And the focus is to broaden the base of the economic pie to a larger, more influential and impactful piece of that pie. And I just wanted to make that observation. Senator Seymour also spoke about, and she's right, the need and desire to have Bahamian ownership from within this industry, as well as employment opportunities. And you know, we are doing just that. In fact, I think there at this point in time, there may be 4 issued licenses under the DARE Act of operating entities. And one of those entities is an entirely Bahamian-owned entity named Agio, and owned by 2 young, progressive Bahamian professionals, Andrew Roll, who some of us would know as Juice, and Brian Jones as partners in that. And very progressive, first digital wallet licensed in the Bahamas, owned by Bahamians, in fact. And so the policy of the government, and I think it's the policy of both governments, frankly, is to encourage and advance and facilitate Bahamian ownership within the industry. And that is something we certainly are advancing and believe in. With respect to, the only comment with respect to Senator Henfield, maybe 2 comments. The first one is that I would just want to remind everybody, last sitting we tabled some regulations dealing with not-for-profits and their obligations under KYC, AML, and bookkeeping requirements. Those are the law of the land. I just say that. I say nothing further. With respect to tax reform, it is the former administration who committed to the OEC standard of a global minimum tax on corporations that are multinational above a certain threshold of revenue, I think 750 million euros. We have reiterated our commitment to implement that, but we do not have a commitment to implement any other form of income tax on Bahamians. And I just want that to be clear. And we will navigate that journey as we have to go. We do know and understand the opinions of others who, frankly, sometimes have never even been to the country or even this side of the world. But we recognize that, and I just wanted that to be clear. I don't know if the Senator advocates for a personal income tax on Bahamians or not, but it's not something that the Progressive Liberal Party government will do. Having said that, I think it was a very healthy debate and wrap-up, and as such, I hereby move for the second reading of a bill for an act to amend the Digital Assets Registered Exchange Act to provide for the monitoring and sanction of persons carrying on or purporting to carry on digital asset business activities without the requisite registration.
My legislation.
It has been moved and second that the following bill be read a second time and committed. A bill for an act to amend the Digital Assets and Registered Exchanges Act to provide for the monitoring and sanction of persons carrying on or purporting to carry on digital asset business activities without the requisite registration. As many as in favor say aye. Those opposed say nay. The ayes have it. The motion is carried. Order that the bill be read a second time and committed.
A bill for an act to amend the Digital Assets and Registered Exchanges Act to provide for the monitoring and sanction of persons carrying on or purporting to carry on digital assets businesses activities without the requisite registration.
For the second reading of bills. The chair recognizes Senator Ryan Pinder.
Thank you, Madam President. I move for the second reading of a bill for an act to amend the Financial Transactions Reporting Act.
It has been moved and seconded that the following bill be read a second time and committed. A bill for an act to amend the Financial Transactions Reporting Act. As many as in favor say aye. Those that are opposed say nay. The ayes have it. The motion is carried. Order the bill be read a second time and committed.
A bill for an act to amend the Financial Transactions Reporting Act.
For the second reading.
There are none, Madam President.
Committee of the Whole.
Madam President, I move that the Senate do resolve itself into a Committee of the Whole with the Vice President in the chair.
Is there a seconder? It has been moved and seconded that the Senate do now resolve itself in the Committee as a whole with the Vice President and Chairman of the Committee of the Whole in the chair. As many as in favor say aye. Those opposed, nay. The motion is carried.
Committee of the Whole.
Mr. Chairman, in respect of a bill for an act to amend the Digital Assets and Registered Exchanges Act to provide for the monitoring and sanction of persons carrying on or purporting to carry on digital asset business activities without the requisite registration, I move that the long title be agreed.
Is there a seconder? It has been moved and seconded that the long title of the bill be agreed. As many are in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those who oppose say nay. The motion is agreed.
Mr. Chairman, I move that the short title be agreed.
Is there a seconder? It has been moved and seconded that the short title of the bill be agreed. As many are in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those who oppose say nay. The motion is agreed. The short title is agreed.
Mr. Chairman, I move that clauses 2 through 6 be agreed.
Is there a second? It has been moved and seconded that clauses 2 through 6 be agreed. As many are in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those who oppose say nay. The motion is agreed. The motion is carried. Clauses 2 through 6 of the bill are agreed.
Mr. Chairman, I now move that the bill be agreed in its entirety.
It has been moved and seconded that the bill be agreed in its entirety. As many are in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those who oppose say nay. The motion is agreed. The bill is agreed in its entirety.
Mr. Chairman, with respect to a bill for an act to amend the Financial Transactions Reporting Act, I move that the long title be agreed.
Is there a second? It has been moved and seconded that the long title of the bill be agreed. As many are in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those who oppose say nay. The motion is agreed.
Mr. Chairman, I move, thank you, Mr. Chairman, I move that the short title be agreed.
Is there a second? It has been moved and seconded that the short title of the bill be agreed. As many are in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those who oppose say nay. The motion is agreed. The short title is agreed.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. I move that clauses 2 to 7 of the bill be agreed.
It has been moved and seconded that clauses 2 through 7 of the bill be agreed. As many are in favor say aye. Those who oppose say nay. The motion is agreed. The motion is carried. Clauses 2 through 7 of the bill are agreed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I move that the bill be agreed in its entirety.
Is there a second? It has been moved and seconded that the bill in its entirety be agreed. As many are in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those who oppose say nay. The motion is agreed. The bill is agreed in its entirety.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I move that the President do now take the chair.
It has been moved and seconded that the President do now take the chair. As many are in favor say aye. Those who oppose say nay. The motion is carried. Madam President will now take the chair. Madam President, I beg leave to report that the Committee of the Whole has examined both bills, having made no amendments thereto.
Honorable Senators, the Vice President and Chairman of the Committee of the Whole has reported the committee has examined the bills, having made no amendments thereto. Third reading and passing of bills.
Yes, Madam President. Madam President, I move that a bill for an act to amend the Digital Assets and Registered Exchanges Act to provide for the monitoring and sanction of persons carrying on or purporting to carry on digital asset business activities without the requisite registration be read a third time and passed.
Is there a seconder? It's been moved and seconded that the following bill be read a third time and passed. As many as in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. The motion is carried. Ordered that the bill be read a third time and passed.
A bill for an act to amend the Digital Assets and Registered Exchanges Act to provide for the monitoring and sanction of persons carrying on or purporting to carry on digital asset business activities without the requisite registration.
Ordered that this bill do now pass and the title thereof declared to be Digital Assets and Registered Exchanges Amendment Act. For the third reading of bills.
Yes, Madam President, I move for third reading and passage of a bill for an act to amend the Financial Transactions Reporting Act.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded that the following bill be read a third time and passed. As many as in favor say aye. Those opposed say nay. The motion is carried. Ordered that the bill be read a third time and passed.
A bill for an act to amend the Financial Transactions Reporting Act.
Ordered that this bill do now pass and the title thereof declared to be the Financial Transactions Reporting Amendment Act 2002. For the third reading of bills.
There are none, Madam President.
Consideration of House amendments, resolutions, discharge of select committees, notice of future meetings,
Madam President, I would like to renew all notices standing in the name of the government.
orders for clerk, adjournment.
Madam President, I move that at its rising, the Senate will adjourn sine die.
Is there a seconder? It has been moved and second that the House at its rising do adjourn sine die. As many as in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed say nay. The motion is carried. The House stands adjourned sine die. Final adjournment.
Madam President, I move that the Senate do now adjourn.
Is there a seconder? It has been moved and second that the Senate do now adjourn. As many as in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. The motion is agreed. The Senate stands adjourned sine die.
Moringa is good for everything. And you, well, you could, when you're eating the seeds. Yeah, but you can get the actual